Let's hope this works, guys.
Drum roll.
All right, well, hopefully we're live. It was given some problems beforehand, but let's hope it works. So, hello everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another Warhammer Weekly After Dark because it's late but we're still here. I had to travel today. I apologize. It was a lot of travel, but we're here. We're rock and roll. As a word of warning, YouTube has been acting really strangely tonight, everybody, so I do apologize in advance if anything goes a little wonky. It took 45 minutes for it to even let me create the stream and then was dropping frames the whole time, but we'll see. Maybe YouTube's fixed now. This is what we get, folks, when we rely on a service that we don't own. At any rate, what do you want? It's free, so you don't get to complain.
Is the solution? Is the solution there to like own YouTube? Like, is that an option?
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't own it. I don't pay for it. It's free. What right do I have to complain, I guess? Anyway, we're going to talk about Mawtribes tonight. And to do that, we've got Brett from Rerolling Ones. What's up, buddy?
Hey, how's it going?
Uh-oh. We got Jack in the background, too. Special guest star, bonus star. Jack's in the background. No Bone Daddies, huh?
Yeah, Jack has an official message for the Warhammer Weekly world.
Jack, are you canceling Bone Daddies?
Bone Daddies. Anything besides Bone Daddies.
Well, that's next week. We'll talk to the Bone Daddies next week.
So okay, next week then everybody in the chat has to come up with their new pitch for whatever they're called.
Bone Daddies isn't gonna work.
Oh, they're Bone
Oh,
Daddies.
you just don't like the name?
Oh,
Oh no, it's Bone. It's definitely Bone Daddy.
It's Bone Daddies, and you need to get on that train. The ticket's been punched. The train's leaving the station. You can fight it all you want, my friend, but this is what it is.
Jack, you got to wait until the next new army. You got to
It's not Bone Daddies.
coin that quick before somebody.
Sorry, man. It's
Yeah,
Bone Daddies.
and like that's Vince. I hope you all know that. Like
Yeah.
Vince has labeled it Bone Daddies. It's his fault, and it's stuck. Like everyone in the WhatsApp chats, it's all Bone Daddies all the way down.
See,
On our
Vince
server,
wanted-
it is. Yeah.
Vince wanted Slanesh to be Leather Daddies. That fell.
Yep.
And now something had to be a daddy. And
Yep.
Bone Daddies is not a thing.
Look, this one fits better, as I mentioned previously. This is for next week's show, but their leader is the ultimate daddy, okay? So I don't know what to tell you. It's just how it works, man. They are the Bone Daddies. At any rate, this, as I said, it's left the station. Jack, I'll consult you before we name the next army.
Appreciate it.
At any rate, also, it's here, as always, is my own little Noblar. It's Tom. What's up?
I got an introduction, even though you've used Noblar before.
I have. But it's too appropriate for the show. You are my
Thanks.
lookout Noblar, Tom.
Can I be like
whenever there's
your
incoming
gluttonous
fire-
halfling?
No, whenever there's incoming fire, I just throw you in the way. You're my 6-up mortal wound save against missile weapons.
Hey, the Noblar doesn't die. He's the one that's pointing out the incoming fire. Let me point that out.
Fair
He's
enough.
the one seeing the trouble and pointing it out.
Well, it fits then. All right, so as I said, tonight we're going to talk Mawtribes. First, we have, like, basically no news to talk through, so that's exciting. I've got the rumor engine up on the screen. Either it is a double-thinged bow for the High Elves, or it's a weird Zinchi or Elfie horn with two little pieces that have been bejeweled on the end.
As someone said, no, that's not what it is. It is clearly the new War Mammoth.
Oh, yeah. It's not. It's way too ornate, but that's insane. It's clearly elvish. Like, it has the elvish four jewels around the metal thing. That's like
That's
elves and Eldar always do that. By the way, it could be a 40k thing easily. Eldar do that. All the elves, they use the same thing where they'll have the 4 ovular jewels around a circular, or, like around a cylindrical shape. They do it all the time. It's like the most common signifier of elvish stuff. So, yes. But anyway, Brent, you got a guess? What do you think? You can see it on the screen.
I'm good with elves, and basically whenever it looks like it might be elves, then yeah, it might be Eldar, and that's something I know nothing about. So I think as long as it has pointy ears, I think that makes sense.
Sure.
I want to say for Warhammer Underworlds, I think based on like some of the cards, people were thinking that one of the war bands eventually is going to be Daughters of Cain, but that doesn't look too gnarly and pointy and spiky to be Daughters of Cain to me. So maybe
It's too Slaneshi. Like, I wonder if there's a Slanesh warband coming.
that would be cool too.
I just want that like that Icebrow Hunter and the Frost Sabers that were on some of the cards.
Sure.
Because it'd be really cool to get a new sculpt of both of those things.
Yes.
So that's kind of cool.
You don't like the current Frost Sabers?
So that's going to be a pass. We'll talk about that when we get there. Certainly, that's going to be part of the discussion. And then obviously, yes, the reason there's no news is because it's Sisters Week. And, you know.
So,
obviously
I
that's
have
cool.
news.
Sure. I just want to say the Sisters they did do the full, I don't even know if it's really the full army reveal, but they did a bigger army reveal of a lot more stuff. If you're interested in the Plastic Sisters, they are truly like beyond amazingly gorgeous. The new girl on like the flying throne with guns on the bottom is incredible. Like everything was great. So there you go. Yep. Yippee skippy. Okay.
I have some real news.
I'm ready.
Like some rumor leak news.
Ooh, there you go. All right. What do we got?
Gonna be accurate.
So, rumor has it that the mid-season update is going to happen in January.
So a little later than we thought because we were originally talking December.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And that our new favorite endless spell may be getting some changes, which is the Soul Scream Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And that may involve limiting the number of units that can jump across.
Okay.
He's putting it together right now.
What?
So, hey, I just got my converted dwarf one done, so I get it. Like, I get it. But, like, I was building it as this leak came through. And so I was like, son of a bitch.
You guys like this? Just no.
Yeah, exactly. And somebody's like, "Hey, Tom, GW must have cameras in your house," and I'm like, "They do. It's called Warhammer Weekly." And they hear me talk about this stuff every week.
Well, also it was showing up in every list ever, and
it just won.
And people are doing little mathematical things where they show that you can basically move your whole army around every turn.
Yeah.
So okay, so it gets restricted to less units. One, two, some number. Sure.
That may be happening.
Mm-hmm.
That may be happening. Another rumor is that Seraphon is coming in January.
Okay. Which would track. Like that's the last big low-hanging fruit that hasn't really ever been touched. Like obviously we want updated Zinch, we want updated KO, but Seraphon, once we have the STD book next month, Seraphon is like, that's it. That's the last ones that haven't really had a real book. Mm-hmm. Right.
And then KO and Zinch in February.
There you go. And they're done. Wrap it up. We'll kill Doug again with another double book release. Yeah, that'll be real fun.
Start over.
So those are trustworthy sources that likely know what they're talking about.
Cool. Do you know, is Seraphon maybe going to be a model release? Because I
heard nothing.
Yeah.
I heard nothing other than dates.
Sure. I would hope so, since they're toward the end. I imagine that's because they're not just they could just be just a book and maybe a scenery piece, but I feel like the delay means maybe there's something else.
Yeah, you shouldn't feel that way. Look, I mean, there are three realities we can live in. So like, I want to see everybody stop trying to read the tea leaves on this because it's impossible to read. There are three potentialities, right? Here we go. All future book releases that are any kind of update are shaped something like one of these three things. Option the first, Skaven. Skaven is we give you a book with some kind of either spells or endless terrain. We kill none of the range and just ship the whole thing out with a new book. Right?
Right.
That's we just push it out the door with a new book. That's option the first, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Option the second is the Cities of Sigmar treatment, where we don't really introduce anything new. By the way, Mawtribes could potentially fall into this, but they had less cut. But like maybe you get a little terrain thing, maybe you don't. Maybe you get spells, maybe you don't. But we cut a bunch of the old garbage, and then what's left we send out the door, and that's it. Again, nothing new.
Yep.
Right. And then the third option is the Gits model, right? Where we cut
a little bit of new, a little bit old,
and we take a little bit of the old or a medium amount of the old, and we just surprise you with a ton of new boingy boy sculpts, and that's what you get. Those are the three options, and like trying to figure out which one they're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Good luck.
Yeah, like it's just not happening.
That's
Right.
fair.
It could be any of those three, and none of them seem to have any sort of predictability. There's nothing that different about what the Skaven range had versus what cities had, and yet with one of them we kept the whole range, and one of them we canned 40 scrolls. Right. So
Yeah.
now I'm
Predictions
insane.
are terrible too. So
Yeah.
that's fair.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My answer is we'll see. Time will tell. Look, any kind of new lizard book action. By the way, the name that I would want to call them when they get re-released, which wouldn't stick because I would just want to call them Slon because that was their original name. The whole army was just called Slon.
Sure.
Before they were lizardmen,
Sure.
they were just Slon. But nobody would get that joke. So that's just funny to me. So we got to think of a new name for them. Probably just call them lizardmen and really drive everybody crazy.
Swan happy memories.
Yes. So there you go. Yeah, I mean that all tracks, right? It feels like the right release schedule.
Well, and what I would say is that like a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, that's not like that, like that's just predicting what like is obvious, but like that's actually coming from sources. That's not wish listing, is what I would say.
Sure. I understand. Brent, do any of those three armies, are they exciting to you? Have you ever been a Lizardmen player, or do you like Tzeentch, or are you looking to get out the boats and guns?
I have been a failed just about everything player. So do I have Caradron and Seraphon models waiting to be painted or used? Yes. So I'm very interested in all of those too. And I was playing Tzeentch for a little bit, but then our buddy Greg is painting up a lot of Tzeentch right now. So I think like by the time that he's done with that, if his Tzeentch book is coming in February, then that's good timing. Then we won't have to have this moment of like, oh, are we going to be able to get Tzeentch on the channel? Just be like, new book? Yes. Can actually be timely with some of our videos, which is kind of hard to do.
Madness. No, we like to delay our reviews to like a good 3 weeks after the book is out. I'm kind of hoping the FAQ for the Bone Daddies comes out before we have to do the Bone Daddy show. That way we can have it fully factored in, right? It's just like, are they going to FAQ fix that dumb Mortec thing? That's name I can't remember because they all have silly names.
The crawler.
Not the crawler, not the cat.
No, crawler. The
harvester,
not
Gothric harvester or whatever. Because as it stands right now, I don't know if you've watched people do the mathematical calculations that if you can actually get like 3 of them or 4 of them overlapping.
No. Like, you need 2. You need 2.
You need 2 to make it silly, but 3.
No.
If you can get 3 overlapping, it goes into where you have to deal hundreds of thousands of damage.
No. If you do 2, you have to do that. If you do 2, it is.
I'll go pull the math. It's not 2. It's not. You're not correct.
Have you seen the animation?
Yeah.
With 10 guys and 2? Like somebody created an animation with 2 guys, like in an automated cycling of it. And it was 2 harvesters and 10 skeletons. And 2 harvesters and 10 skeletons. The skeletons are unkillable.
I don't think. Whatever. We'll bring it up next week. We'll see if it gets fixed.
Yes.
Does this mean if you kill the harvesters real quick?
Yes, like you have to kill the harvesters.
Right, that's the only
I'm cool with it. Don't FAQ.
But you have to physically get to them. The problem is you can put a cloud of skeletons around them, so they can only be shot off.
Right.
That's the challenge.
Because you just continually remove the models that are in the middle of in the harvester cloud. Like that's all you
and like
have to
if
do.
you ever cut through those, and this is why you only need 2. If you ever cut through those that are in the middle, like you only get 1 roll on the other ones, but as soon as you make one of those rolls, you replace the ones in the middle, and so you get the double rolls again. And whenever you roll 2 in a double roll, you replace 2 models.
Sure. If you get
because of the way that it's worded. Like if you have a double roll and you're missing 2 models, and you make both rolls, you replace 2 models.
Sure. Assuming you're not refilling over the max, yes.
Right. Yeah, like you can't refill over the max, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
And yes, I do agree. It does take two to make a thing go right. So absolutely, Emily, good call. Or for a thing to go very, very wrong if you're a melee only army that has no option to reach over the top. So there you go.
Iron Jaws.
It's like we're gonna talk about Mawtribes then, right?
Yeah, exactly. So them ogres, huh? Yes.
Womp, womp, womp.
Yes. At any rate, any other news, Tom?
No. Like I said, we had some of those leaks. No, not really.
Yeah, it's a slow week. That's all right. Good. We'll get right into the meaty goodness. At any rate, so let's go to some pick of the week. So, Brent, what do you got, man?
Okay, so this did not come out within the week, but I did see it within the week. It's from November 2nd, I think. Pete the Wargamer painted up Catacross, and he did a really cool color scheme and kind of walked through how he did it, where like from the front, sort of the whole diorama of the piece, it's very dark and gray, but then there's like this blue moonlight that he airbrushed behind them, and he kind of, shows it in the 360, and it's kind of cool that he... I don't know, that looking at a model from a different angle, different side, then like the color scheme changes quite a bit. I hadn't seen something like that and thought that was a cool take on that model too, that like he points out like the Games Workshop version, like it's painted obviously very well, but there's a lot going on. And so his color scheme kind of makes everything look very cohesive on, this whole diorama of like 5 different dudes.
Nice. Awesome. I'll link to it. Hey, I'm never sad to link to a cool paint job. That sounds awesome. Yeah, there's been several
paint job.
Several cool artists who were given that a little early or who picked it up right away and did some good work with it. So yes, absolutely. Tommy, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna spruik Mr. Mephisto's Rantcast for those of you guys that have never seen it. Meph is pretty fantastic, and in this one that I'm spruiking, he does a Havoc recap where they defeated us, and it's him.
It's like poison in Tom's mouth.
Bryce and Tristan are on that episode. It's like a 2-parter, and I just want to encourage you all to check it out. So they talk about the International Escalation League and some other stuff. So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
So the 2 parts together are almost like 3.5 hours or so. So he has a great channel. I'd encourage you all to check him out. He's a good dude.
It was a good episode, and they did beat us. So victory well earned. All because Tom is bad with his army is basically what I would lay it at the foot of. If I had to just pick, I mean, I don't know. All I'm saying is, Tom, there wasn't many bad guys on my side of the table. I don't know what was going over on your side. At any rate,
the only game we lost points, it was a game you were a part of. Let me point that out.
I was part of 4 out of the 5 games, Tom.
Right. I was a part of all of them.
Well, clearly somebody else came in and pinch hit for me and brought the same level of quality to the table, so I'm glad to hear that.
Thanks, Tanya.
Absolutely. My pick is a physical thing, but it will relate to a website, which I will direct you all to, which is this. This is Dreamlands, and this comes from Steve Foote, who was nice enough to send me a copy of this. And this is absolutely amazing. There is a little website on the back, which is footworks.co.uk, which I will send to everybody. But this came from his Inktober in 2018, and he sketches out a bunch of amazing like landscapes and boards to interest you for table setups, for display boards, for like dioramas for your basing. Just it's amazing how cool a lot of this stuff is. It's just so awesome. The little worlds he creates. Some of these would make absolutely amazing display boards. Some of them would just make incredible tables. He has all sorts of different scales and sizes of them and like lots of notes to show you, kind of what the materials would be and how they're all arranged. It's just the coolest thing. So I love this. It's absolutely gorgeous. Thank you, Steve, so much for sending it out to me. I will unabashedly probably rip some of these ideas off. So thank you for that. But there's a lot of really cool stuff here, and I'll link to the site where you can go find the book and support Steve, and it's a very cool thing. So there you go. That's my pick. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about some hobby time. Brent, what are you working on? Jack's working on his phone in the background. He's gluing stuff together. I know that. What are you working on? Jack, you can hang out in the background. I enjoy it. You sitting in the background, you're like the Statler and Waldorf in one person of this show. So, at any rate, go ahead.
I built the Maw Pot.
All
So
right.
relevant to the discussion today. It's a pretty cool kit, and I hope everybody, if you've taken a look, maybe at like the pictures online, or maybe more people need to just make note of this. Some ogre threw 3 carrots into the people stew, and that is the funniest thing about that model to me, is that like, who's got a foot? Yeah, throw that in there. This like head, put that in there too. An entire chicken, yes. And then one guy's just like, I got 3 carrots, and then like dump them in. Great.
Well, you know, they got to get their vitamin C. I mean, it's still important.
Don't want to get scurvy.
No, exactly. That's, you know, they can eat anything. That doesn't mean they don't also like vegetables. They're omnivores, sure. Who doesn't love a good carrot now and then, you know? It's delicious. Cook it up. Yeah, it's great. Adds great. It's got a free glutamate probably. I don't know that that's true, but that's probably true. Probably adds a delightful flavor to the stew. I'll have to ask my wife. If she's still watching, she can respond accordingly. I don't know. She knows that
I like
stuff.
it too, is like the reading through like the lore in the book. It doesn't really talk about them getting their vegetables, but the sculptor here is just like, no.
No.
I know what makes a good soup.
Yeah. It's not all meat. I mean, like, you know, yes, of course, it's mostly meat, but they got to have a little bit there. You know? Yeah, it just keeps it interesting. Absolutely. All right, Tom, what about you? What's on your table, man?
I've been working on some dwarves. I'm back on the only road that I've ever known, and so I'm doing some dwarves. Here I have some photos. I have I literally had hammer models, but I did that, like the Mohawks weren't going on them nicely, so I just decided to build new hammerers.
Ooh.
And so I decided I had 50 Thunderers new in box that I weren't using, so 20 of them became hammerers. So that happened. So my nice KO Fire Slayer themed dwarf forces continue. And I did some endless spell stuff as well for my rune magic. Both there's my Life Swarm there, the Volknut rune, which is the rune of the Fallen Warrior, and I also did, where is it? And then I did my Screaming Bridge Dwarven Portals. So yeah, we've been working on those. So
Those look
getting all
like
that
they're
stuff,
from
but-
Lord of the Rings Online. I've seen
They
those at the
don't.
exact doors.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm sure they look like that.
Yeah.
They're from printable scenery. So
Yeah.
I printed some, like I lowered like the floor of it so that it was like flat, and then they fit perfect on those bases, and so they're my portals. They're functionally their dimension door. Their dwarven dimension door is what that is.
Yeah, I got it. No, it works. I'm just saying, like in the starting zone for the dwarves in Lord of the Rings Online, there are arches and stuff that look exactly like that. So there you go.
Awesome. Good.
Yeah.
It fits then.
I dig it. How did you do the snow too? That looks nice.
That's not snow. Like, that's the irony here. Like, these are unprimed.
Oh, well,
So like, yeah.
Look
So like,
wet.
that's
what?
no, that's just all you're seeing there is you're seeing the like Vallejo like pumice and lava rock. Like, I do a mix of, I don't use dark earth for my lava. I use what is it called?
It's one of the Vallejo basing paste is what he's using.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the basing. So I use the mix of the rough gray pumice and the rough white pumice. And so the gray pumice is the thicker, and then the white pumice is the more like sharper. Actually, you don't even see the white pumice on there. That's only gray. On that photo, I hadn't put the white on yet. I have white on them now. But yeah, it kind of looks like snow. All that'll get primed over, and it'll become lava rock.
Great. I'm glad
So-
I said I really like the paint job on your model, and it turns out it's
Just
Not-
primed,
Not
yeah.
painted.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
You can see
literally
that.
just
Oh my God.
materials.
It's not like, Tom, I really like your new model. It looks-
Well, if you want to know how to do snow, I would
Right.
direct you toward Hobby Cheating. I believe it's 93, which is realistic snow on. So there you go. I would just call that out.
I will take that. Yeah.
There you go.
You've helped me before, so I trust you.
Wouldn't lead you astray. It's something in the early 90s. I will admit I don't have all like 200 and X videos memorized right off the top of my head. But it's in that zip code, so there you go. For myself, I'm in the middle of a challenge that I'm going to do this weekend, and it will become a hobby cheating video, which is I have 2,000 points of ogres sitting in my airbrush booth. I have all the bases for them prepared right here on my desk, and I'm going to paint an army in 24 hours, and I'm going to record and make a video out of that, and it's going to be how to paint an army, a 2,000 point army, in 24 hours, and it's going to be all the tips and tricks you can use to expedite your painting, which, Brent, I seem to understand from hearing Doug discuss that this could be valuable to you.
100%
Yeah.
valuable to me, and relevant to the army that I currently have unprimed on my table as well. So
there you go.
Please help.
It'll probably be a while before the video is out, unfortunately, but
That's okay. I won't be done. So
because I've got to make it, record it all, and this one will require a fair amount of editing since it's going to be recording lots of things over the 24-hour period. But like, it'll be clock, countdown, do the whole thing. Also, since I didn't want to buy anything. This is all ogres I had. So I had all these ogres because I had bought at the crash, back in the crash, the great crash of 2015. I had snatched up some armies.
It's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a real thing.
It was it was a great time to be a buyer. Let me tell you what, it was a buyer's market, baby. So I snapped up an ogre army for, I'm going to say $30. That's a real number.
the alternative was that guy was going to light it on fire. So
Correct.
Right.
So I had that, plus I had some existing ogre figs already from from a previous sort of collection that a friend had back in the day. Put that together, had 2,000 points, converted myself a little hunter to add in there, and good to go with the battalion and like an extra command point and an endless spell. I'm at 2,000, so there you go. I might add some more wolves in the future, but who knows, whatever. So the trick is going to be paint that whole thing, but I didn't have the mall pot, obviously. And I didn't actually have a real slaughtermaster with the pot on the back. And so that got me thinking, like, well, I could convert something, or I could have a different theme. Like, instead of just going after meat, and that's it. And I thought about my old favorite ogre, which was Greasiest Goldtooth, or Greasiest Goldtooth, or whatever he was called. The dude who rode around on, like, a big pile of treasure. Yeah?
Yep.
And I thought about that, and I was like, ah-ha-ha. So my ogres are hungry, certainly, but they're also greedy. And so they're going after the gold. They want to get that gold, baby. That's what they're for. So then, like, I have increasing amounts of money on the various things. So, like, the man-eaters have their own wealth. The other ones don't. And then the slaughtermaster, who's kind of in charge, and the tyrant both have big piles of money on them. And so his, like, reaching into his pot and pulling stuff out is him reaching back behind and pulling out treasure to hand to them. And if he pulls out treasure they don't like, then the ogres belt him, and that's where the mortal wound happens when you roll a 1. And they get inspired by, I have, like, different types of treasure in the pile, like some real treasure, like skulls and stuff, or like gold, some food, some skulls and weapons and things like that. So that way there's lots of fun, interesting things he could pull out of there. And I thought that would be a fun sort of take on the army there. Yeah.
Have you named this Mawtribe yet?
No, I haven't.
Or
no.
However big you think it is.
I'm down if you've got a name for me. I'm good.
Ooh, not yet, but I'll get back to you.
I could just call them gold diggers, I suppose.
Gold teeth.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. All right. So yeah, it'll be a fun thing to do. And I have like a bunch of extra piles of treasure from when I got a bunch of stuff from my Slanesh army, since I had kind of had that as a theme around the keepers bases, but I got too much because I wasn't sure how much I was going to need. And yeah, so I have extra treasure piles. And who doesn't love treasure piles? Always good for a model. Anyway, so that's what
I was going to mention in the lore. Like, I don't know if you guys have read in the book, there is a really good bit that it talks about of like ogres that are smart enough to figure out that like maybe we shouldn't eat treasure. Maybe we can trade this for weapons and food.
Yeah, there you go.
I think that's got to be the inspiration for your army.
I will go dig into it and find it.
Most of the treasure.
Yeah. You still eat a little bit. They'll still occasionally eat some gold pieces. Just
they're like, oops.
Yeah.
Treasure diet.
Oh.
Yeah. But like that, but I thought that'd be a fun alternate take on the thing than just, meat everywhere. So there you go.
For sure.
They love gold. All right, so that's hobby time. Gentlemen, are we ready? Speaking, let's just transition right into it. Are we ready to talk some Mawtribes? We ready to
Sure.
talk about dem ogres?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, Brent, I want you to kick off. And where we're going to start is just with a little 40,000-foot overview, as we commonly do, of how you feel about the...
I think I've been waiting for the moment to get back into ogres after, getting smacked in the face, right? So now getting this book and seeing the way that they... Because I think for like the few years of Age of Sigmar, like, yeah, you've had Beastclaw Raiders, but you haven't had a whole lot of lore behind, like, what do ogres really do in the Mortal Realms? Like, they haven't been fully placed there. So me being kind of this fan of what they were before and just sort of going off of that, of, kind of their personality, the way that they're obsessed with eating, I think that I'm very satisfied with this book, that the way that they have placed ogres back into the Mortal Realms. There's a lot of stuff that is very similar, sort of like a kind of like a dark humor. It talks about the ogres chuckling while they're smashing somebody with a giant hammer. There's a bunch of really gory jokes in this new book, and that's maybe what I think is sort of like the new fun thing is, like, ogres now in Age of Sigmar, I think, are meaner than they were in Warhammer Fantasy. And like when Age of Sigmar started, a lot of people were thinking that it was trying to be less violent, push Slaanesh out of the way. I feel like now we've gotten to a point where, like, no, there's some really dark, horrible stuff in this book. Descriptions of being ground into fine red paste, and a tyrant who eats a Caradron bomb after eating an entire ship and explodes all over his troops. Like, this book is gross. They're drinking blood. They're slashing throats. It is some splatter horror genre madness in this book. And then the next part is, I've only played one game with the book, but it felt like I wanted it to feel. I'm not a great competitive player, so I don't know that I can really speak to, how does this appeal to everybody. But Games Workshop's objective, they talk about this in interviews, is there's a lot of different types of players that they want to appeal to. So if I'm saying that I am more of I want to paint up some models, put it on the board, and have some idea of, like, how do I want to try and win this game, still coming up with combos is rewarding. I had a lot of fun in the game yesterday. Particularly, I want to mention the Gulping Bite rule that has been added to pretty much all the Gutbusters. Yeah, it just looks like an extra 3/3 attack, but one of my lead belchers killed a gyrocopter with the Gulping Bite. And
Nice.
that was just so fun. It's like he just ate a helicopter. That's like I was like, okay, I'm digging this book now.
Nice.
Yeah, that's kind of my
No, it's a good overview.
impression. Yeah, what do you guys think?
I like it. Tommy, what about yourself?
I like the book. I think that it is. I think it's going to fill an interesting niche in the competitive world. I don't know if it will. I don't know if it'll sit on, like, it's not Slaanesh. But I think it's balanced, and I think that they're going to bring competitive things, and I think that they're going to smash some people off the table if they're not prepared. Like, you can't look at ogres and be like, that's, no. Like, no, you look at ogres and go, osh.
Sure.
Like, there's meat here, and there are good tools. But it's not over the top, and it plays like you want it to. You push things forward and you hit it real hard in the face. And like, even a lot of armies that I would play, which are traditionally like a lot more defensive based. Like, yes, some of the high armor stuff is going to bounce like big bowl units, or not bowl units, big glutton units. But at the same time, they also, like, if they build well, they have the tools to deal with high armor targets. And so I like the book. I think it's balanced, and I think that well-built armies are gonna do really well.
Yeah, I think my read on it has been, well, obviously I liked it enough to do a little army of it as a fun little hobby challenge for myself. It'll just be nice to have an extra army that players could come over in my club, and are playing with us can use. But I think that all in all, it has some fundamentals that are very strong.
Yep.
The might is right rule made it very, handled most of the objective problem.
Yep.
Or as it should have been called, large and in charge. But whatever, that's okay. I'm not. Who's splitting hairs, right? It is an army of high wound, decent accuracy, high, multi-damage stuff. It pretty easily, especially if you lean more toward the Gutbuster side, will put an outrageously high number of wounds on the table, which is always challenging. Like, even in the modern world of Warhammer Age of Sigmar, where there are highly offensive armies that can deal a lot of damage, the fact that you can pretty easily in a 2K army get like 180 to 200 plus wounds on the table is just a lot for some armies to deal with on its own, right?
I mean, we'll talk about this, but part of the key here is not that, like, it's the efficiency of those wounds.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is because, like, yeah, maybe a really high damage unit can come in and, like, take a lot of models off, right? But they're still going to hit back. And when they hit back, like, a lot of those armies that can really dish the damage can't take the damage.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you're looking at a book that has an option where you get 48 wounds for 400 points, right? I mean, that's the real math on there. That's a pretty great wound to point ratio, right?
Yep.
Or if you like, you can get 48 for 48 with a shooting option, right? So like that's also another potentiality. I think that it does lack some tools. Like, that is to say, you look at the book, there's no like teleport or summoning or stuff like that. Things that some other armies have. Now, that's not to say you couldn't get it through. It's not to say you can't get a teleport through some means, like, bringing in bridge or something like that. Sure, fine. So it's not like those tools are unreachable by you anymore, but it's just that kind of stuff isn't there. What's really interesting to me about the book and looking over it is that it feels very much like they addressed about half of what I thought should be addressed. Like, half of it they got really right, and half of it just feels like they didn't touch it enough. It's weird to explain. Like, there are just some glaring holes in this book. I think there's a higher percentage in this book of usable units than in a lot of other books, frankly, that have come out even in recent times. Like, people look at Skaven all the time, but there's a lot of whiffs in that book. There's a lot of, if you're going by like raw unit count, Skaven's undoubtedly a powerful army. I'm not arguing that. It's super powerful. But there's but there's a lot of units in that book that just don't do anything. That just you don't generally see on competitive tables. I think the percentage overall here is higher, but it's also tilted towards one historical half of the army. That is to say, I do think on the whole, like, if you just look at it like Gutbusters versus BCR, if you think about it in that kind of a dichotomy, I think the gut side of this came out a lot stronger overall. That doesn't mean that BCR has zero interesting options. I don't think that for a moment. I just think that on the whole, it feels like more of the right stuff was touched in Gutbusters than was touched in BCR. And they didn't address all the fundamental issues they could have. So, yeah.
I wonder if that comes from having a book before, like, because they had the Beastclaw Raider book, Gutbusters. Yeah, they had War Scrolls, but they're almost sort of starting from scratch. I don't know if maybe it's something to do with it.
Yeah, maybe. Like, they felt like there was a bit of a sunk cost where they just kind of started with, like, they basically said, we should try to play more to the historical of it, or maybe they didn't approach it with as much innovation in their mind, right? Because they already had some kind of anchoring, game design conception. Could be. I don't know. Like, overall, I think this is a good book. And I think this book will live in the fat middle, by the way. I mean, if there's ever a book that deserved to be in the fat middle, it's this one. But I think this will absolutely live in the fat middle. It can do an explosive amount of damage. It can be incredibly overwhelming for armies that aren't prepared by it. It can be quite resistant to alpha strikes. It can hit back very hard. It can beta punch very strong. So yeah, I like, and it can also, like, if you get the right bodies on an objective, it can be very, very, very difficult to shift. So Yeah, there we go. All right, so how we're going to break through this, gentlemen, is I actually want to start, instead of starting with like the artifacts and the command traits and going in order, all that kind of stuff, I want to start with the general allegiance rules. I'm going to lay those out quickly so we're all on the page, so our viewers all understand what they are. Okay? And then we're going to talk about the Maw Pot a little bit and its sort of limitations. And then we're just going to go right into the tribes. All right? Everybody's fair with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool beans. So let's start with just our base things so we understand this is how ogres work. 1, trampling charge. If you have a ogre or Rhinox unit, after you make a charge move, you can pick one enemy within 1 inch of this unit and roll a number of dice equal to the unmodified charge roll. Unmodified, very important, meaning like Cogs doesn't bonus it and stuff like that. Of the charge move. You add 2 to each roll if the ogre unit that had made the charge move has 8 or more models or is a monster. So like your Frostlord on Stonehorn, for example, would add +2. A unit of 8 or 10 or 12, 8 or 12, or 9, or whatever the numbers are. A unit of 12 gluttons is going to roll and get these on 4-ups. For every 6+, you deal a mortal wound, 4+ if you're in the better situation. Great. Grasp of the Everwinter. At the start of your hero phase, you roll a die for each enemy unit within 3 inches of any friendly Beastclaw Raider units. If the roll is equal to or less than the current battle round, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So obviously a higher chance of that proccing as you get later in the game and doesn't do very much at all in the beginning. Might makes right, the most important rule the ogres got when determining control of an objective. Each ogre unit counts as 2 models, and each ogre monster counts as 10. Okay, cool. And then they have a nice little designer's notes. I like to call these out every time I see them. Absolutely wonderful. Please keep including these. More of this. Yes, great, well done. Okay. So yeah, that's good stuff. Then Ravenous Brutes. Ogres are either hungry or eating. Wonderfully designed rule. I love stuff like this. If they're more than 3 inches from the enemy, they're hungry and add 2 inches to their move. If they're within 3 inches, add 2 to the bravery. It's simple enough. They have prayers on a very, very overtly expensive priest that probably isn't going to be played very much. A little bit of a miss there. We'll talk about that more. And then obviously they have the Mawtribes themselves. As well, they start with a big old Maw Pot. And that's what you talked about building, Brent. So, let's talk about that pot. So, the great Maw Pot.
Let's talk about your experience with the pot.
The pot, yeah. What was your experience on the pot? Yes, no. So, the great Maw Pot.
I had a Tyrant and a Frostlord on a Stonehorn. The Frostlord on the Stonehorn was destroyed in the first turn by Dark Shards. And the Tyrant ran away fighting a steam tank. So, yeah, I didn't use the Maw Pot right.
Got it.
But Butcher model forthcoming, hopefully. It at least looked cool. What I thought would have been really nice. What I used 3 units of 2 lead belchers, and I'm kind of thinking I want to try maybe more of. Like it's we talked about, it's nice to have a big unit of gluttons that, can lose 4 of them, take 16 damage, and you still have a bunch of guys to fight back.
Right.
But I also want to see maybe what lots of small units can do, and something like the Maw Pot healing D3 wounds to every ogre unit wholly within 36 is pretty awesome. Like, I think I only lost 1 lead belcher unit of 2 guys, but like all the units had just a couple wounds on them, and maybe some heroes do. I think that would be pretty cool if I actually did that correctly.
Yeah, it's the classic ogre darts. Like back in the day, we used to call them ogre darts, right? Like in 8th edition, this was a very common chaff when you have the little ogre dart units. Yep.
It's back.
It's back again. Yeah, the lead belchers are very interesting little darts. Like 8 wounds for 80 points with a decent move when they're hungry because they go up to 8 inches. Yeah, I agree. A little bit of a shooting attack that doesn't do much, but it's fine. You just look at it as a bonus on their melee because you just charge them in and fight in melee. And they're still ogres. Doom and Darkness has a wonderful breakdown of like I would highly recommend anybody who's watching this who hasn't watched Doom's review to go watch that, because he has a wonderful breakdown in his video talking about the sort of comparative math of lead belchers and gluttons, and it's interesting.
Nice.
All right. So let's talk about that Maw Pot. After territories have been chosen, but before armies are set up, you can set up the Great Maw Pot anywhere on the battlefield more than 1 inch from any other terrain features, more than 12 inches from enemy territory, and more than 6 inches from any objectives. Okay. So this becomes an interestingly challenging piece to set up, right? Because if you're on one of the battle plans where the two territories meet, like let's consider the traditional split half down the middle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you've got an objective basically somewhere near your line, like, because that can often happen if you've got sort of any one of those things. You could be, your Maw could end up being buried way back in your, way back, right?
Heaven forbid there's terrain on the table.
Sure. I mean, you'll have to be 1 inch away, but still, yes, I understand. The 6 inches from objectives is actually a really big deal. Like, that's a heck of a distance from objectives on some of the things. I think of stuff like, like Scorched Earth or something, right, where you have a higher number of objectives. Like, that really starts to limit you. It's interesting in battle plans where the enemy territory doesn't meet your territory, where the enemy territory is quite restricted. Because then maybe it could be farther out sometimes, but, like, the point is that in most cases, this thing is not going to be very far forward. It's often going to be burrowed back into your deployment zone. Buried. Yes, I was waffling there between the two words. And that can be challenging because there are lots of benefits to just standing around this thing, but the reality is you're probably not going to want to just stand around this thing.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, when you eat the battle broth, it is within 6 inches, which is nice. You don't have to be wholly within. That at least gives you a little bit of room that, like, if another hero is moving forward, maybe you can still serve dinner.
Yeah, I'll talk. Let me talk about the rules real quick, Tom, and then go ahead. So just so we all understand the scenery rules of this thing. So it adds 1 to casting and unbinding rolls for ogre wizards. Did anybody else think it's weird that it didn't add to dispelling?
Did it say wizards or just
It's just casting and unbinding, but not dispelling. So I just thought that was strange. Most updated things mention dispelling as well, but this one doesn't add to dispelling. Now, there are other things you can take with your butchers to add to dispelling, but this one doesn't.
Point.
Endless. There you go. So, I mean, the ogres have some pretty interesting ways to deal with them, the spells, but nonetheless, this isn't one of them. So 1 to casting rolls, which is cool because a lot of their spells are a little bit higher casting than you would want. And then, yes, you mentioned Battle Broth already. So a Great Maw Pot is said to be either full or empty. At the start of the battle, it is full. If you're in your hero phase, 1 friendly ogre hero within 6 inches of the Great Maw Pot can spend all of the Great Maw Pot's magic. If you do so, you can heal D3 wounds allocated to each friendly ogre unit wholly within 36 inches of the Maw Pot, which, I mean, admittedly, even if it's, back in your deployment zone, is still quite a bit of the board. Roll separately for each unit. Once the Great Maw Pot's magic has been spent, it is empty. And then if an enemy model is slain within 6 inches of an empty Great Maw Pot from your army, it becomes full. Which is, unless, like, if you get Alpha Struck, that's cool. You might be able to refill it, but or if somebody really is pushing deep in. But it's not going to be common that that's happening. So,
that was just a cool added rule.
Yeah.
For thematic rule.
Sure. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I just don't want people thinking that it's going to be something you're probably regularly doing. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's not like this is a thing that's going to be happening a lot. So just want to make sure people's expectations are set accordingly. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is this. Like, yes, it has to be 6 inches, but, like, butcher bases are either 40 or, like, 105 millimeters.
70, yeah.
So, like, a butcher, like a slaughtermaster could like control an objective, and still be on hit. It still be within 1 inch for the +1 cast. Like, that's not outside the realm of possibility.
Sure. Yeah,
and a lot of objectives are like models within 6 inches. So, like, you could still access it and be contesting an objective. And it's gonna it's big enough that it can actually create a choke point as well. So, I don't know. Like, I know that, like, talking with folks, some folks are pretty down on what this is going to do in its size. I don't know. I think that I'm not as negative. Let me say that about the Maw Pot. I think that there's gas there.
It's fine. it's fine. You know, it's fine.
Right. And I think that's an accurate statement.
It's
something I really have to play with to know. Like for me,
Yeah.
like all the spells I think are all 18 inches or wholly within for like the buff spells.
Yep.
So yeah, it's just playing some games and figuring out like, am I still going to be able to take advantage of the +1 to cast and still have, you know, my units wholly within 18? That seems kind of hard, but maybe we'll find out.
Yeah. I mean, it's not the Bone Daddy terrain piece, right? Like that's a very different, a very different sort of beast. But whatever, that's fine. You can shake your head all you want, Jack. It's like I said, it's happening, man. Get on board, baby.
Can't stop it.
Can't stop it.
Yeah.
This is the train in Grand Theft Auto 5. You can't stop it, all right? It will blow anything up. At any rate, so let's now talk about the tribes, because that's obviously the last thing. This book has our tribe, chamber, enclave, whatever we want to call them, you know, that sort of thing, where we're replacing the standard stuff. And there are basically 3 for the more Gutbusters leaning side and 3 for the more BCR leaning side. So, okay, cool. So let's frame these up. Brent, I'm not going to do these in any order. Which one do you want to talk about? Which tribe do you want to talk about? Because I don't think they're all good. And I'm not going to waste time on some of them. Like, I want to talk about the ones we find compelling and interesting.
I'm not going to talk about the one that I think is the best.
All right.
So I'm going to talk about the one that I think is cool, which is one that I am not going to be playing because I don't have the models for it. But that is Boulderhead.
Okay.
I think that is the coolest Beast Claw Raider focus one. And even though that, you know, when they say that there's like, yeah, these are Beast Claw Raider focus, some of those like Winterbite like would be fine for other ogres, but Boulderhead is just like, no, this is the Monster Mash list that people hated in like original early Age of Sigmar. You can go on YouTube and find like mini wargaming videos, and the comments are like, Beast Claw Raiders are overpowered. Like that was just taking
It's true. It's true.
Laugh about that, right? But like back then, yeah, that was like they were pretty awesome. And I feel like if you have that collection, then Boulderhead is for you. And we talked about this maybe a little bit before the stream, but yeah, we'll have to talk about what would you say he's called, the Murder Horn now? Was that what it was called at this?
I believe
Yes,
Murder
the
Horn
Murder
is
Horn.
the name. Yeah,
Murder
exactly.
Horn. Okay. Yeah, this pretty fun combo that we talked about on our Ogre Mawtribes preview video that we did. And so you got the Frostlord on the Stonehorn. You're starting with that. And I phrased it as like, wouldn't it be cool if the Stonehorn didn't hit on 4s? There's a mount trait called Black Clatterhorn, which adds +1 to hit for the Stonehorn for his horn attack. So then he's hitting on 3s.
Yep.
But then in Boulderhead, there is an artifact that is pretty unique called Brand of the Svard, which is if the bearer has a mount, add 1 to hit rolls for attacks made with that mount's melee weapons. I think that's cool because like artifacts, like they don't affect mounts, but in this case, it's like it's saying no, this is specifically for mounts. I think that's a nice change up in his thematic. That like this is a Maw tribe of a bunch of guys mounted on stone horns and thunder tusks. So what then you're hitting on 2s with the horns, and you're hitting on 2s with his hooves as well. And we talked about then he charges, you're getting +1 damage, and then you also pointed out then the Molten Entrail spell, you can give a monster another +1 damage. So you can have a Stonehorn that charges, and then that's after doing the trampling charge damage, which is already cool.
So you're rolling your charge damage. I want to walk through this because it is an interesting setup. So you charge, and you're going to do your charge. You're going to roll your dice in your charge distance, and every 4+, because he is a monster, is going to be a mortal wound. And then he hits, and exactly right, like the dude on top does whatever. But then yes, the beast.
He's just like, cool, yeah. So if he's at full health, 6 attacks with those horns, hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s, 2 rend, and they're 5 damage if you got all of those, like, and the charge and the spell. That's hilarious.
Yeah. And then the hooves are what, D6 attacks on 2s and 2s, neg 1, D3 +2 on the charge. Is that right?
Yep.
So that's fun, but then for Boulderhead as well, the command trait Lord of Beasts is appropriately named. Friendly Boulderhead monsters that are wholly within 12 of this general at the start of the movement phase move an extra inch when they make a normal move that phase. Sure. But then the ability for Boulderhead, add 1 to the wounds characteristic of all the monsters, and you can take multiple mount traits. You usually only get 1, and then an additional 1 for a War Scroll Battalion. But in this case, if you have 2-3 heroes mounted on Stonehorns and Thunder Tusks, they all get mount traits. Cool.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and the command ability is cool too. So that's another thing is I feel like a lot of times when they have these like sub factions, you're like, oh, that item is really good, so that's why this command ability is really bad. Like they have to balance it out, but really like these Claw Raider monsters benefit from all of these. So then the command ability is good too, because then you can use the top row of the damage table. So even if your Stonehorn is down to a single wound, use this command ability, and then he's back up to 6 attacks with the horns again.
Yeah, or moving his full move, right? Because that's obviously the other big challenge is these guys, because you can use it at the start of any phase. And obviously the big limitation with these guys is they get real slow when they get wounded. And, like, even retreating out of combat might be impossible. Or, like, actually going and moving across the board to get or threaten an objective. But the fact that if you've got a couple command points, you could just keep doing it. You could pound it to make him move real far, then charge, then pound it to make him fight on the higher one, on the higher chart. Like, it is a really useful command ability. I agree, like, nothing in this is bad. The Deadly Hail, which is clearly just thrown in there as extra, is completely forgettable, and who cares? It's just irrelevant because we'll talk about why Huskard's on Thunder Tusk. Why prayers are disappointing later on. But like, so who cares? It's clearly a bonus ability. Most things like this don't have that many abilities. So if that one was just the Ipsum Lorem text, it would still be a fine thing, because I agree, like, the weakest is probably your command trait. Certainly that's not amazing, like just an extra.
You're already moving 14 at the beginning.
Right. Like, okay. But sure, extra move. The movement wins games. Movement's never bad. So I'm not going to like completely poo-poo it, but it's like, it is as minimally interesting as you can get, right? But it's okay. You just crossed the line. You're like 50.1% good, but fine. But yes, I agree. Like, Boulderhead's solid. The Murder Horn is really good. You can also make interesting, like, because you can take the multiple mount traits in this. Yep. Because everybody gets one. It does also...
And they all have to be different.
They all have to be different. But it opens up, like, the Crunch Horn as well. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Like, you can have one that's a Murder Horn and one that's a Crunch Horn. So, while you mentioned the Murder Horn, and we showed how that guy stacks out, and that's your super offensive one, right? Not that the Crunch Horn's not offensive. But because it is. But the Crunch Horn, I suppose, is offensive in a different way. So there's another mount trait called Metal Cruncher. And at the start of the combat phase, pick one enemy War Machine, which is hilarious, or one enemy unit with a save characteristic of 4+, 3+, or 2+. Now,
let me just say, by the way, poor KO, because it's going to come soon, and they're going to be all happy about their ships, and those ships are going to get crunched.
Those ships are going to get metal crunched. Yeah, like, and a lot of units in the game, by the way, have a 4-up save. Like, it's not that uncommon.
Not the ones you want, like Hearthguard Berserkers or Plague Bearers or
Daughters
of Cain, or I could go on. Not the ones you want, but a lot of them do have a 4+.
There are a lot of 4+ armor saves floating around in this game. It is not an uncommon save. Like, we're not talking about just the highest armored people. At any rate, that enemy, this is happening at the start of the combat phase, which I like. And that enemy unit immediately suffers D6 mortal wounds. So this can be great because you charge, you hit, you do mortal wounds, you trampling charge, and then you activate Metal Cruncher. You do D6 mortal wounds because of your Metal Cruncher. So it's great. You can really mortal wound the heck out of people with this kind of thing. Yep. And then obviously that guy could have other stuff on him as well. If you happen to have some kind of battalion, he could be like your ethereal dude that's meant to get stuck in and grind or something like that. And that would be perfectly fine. So, if you can fit 2 Frost Lords in, I think that's a perfectly viable build in there. Is it like ultra competitive? I'm not going to say that. But would it be super fun to have those two ridiculous monster trucks driving around, crunching units and like absolutely blowing up? Because ideally what you want to do is you want to drive the cruncher one into the more anvil-y units and just slowly wear them down, and you want to drive the the murder
Murder
horn
horn.
into the weaker units and just blow them up, right? The weaker save units, the more hammery units. And I will say that that like ethereal metal crunching Stonehorn is rather hard to kill. At the tournament in that game that you're referencing, I had a Keeper of Secrets jump into one. She piled in
Did
on,
like 3 wounds.
Yeah, on her, she only got 1 pile-in because it took her like her second pile-in to get to the murder horn. But no, she only did 2. She did 2 wounds total between his ethereal and his 5-up save. And
And then he punched her out of existence.
yeah, it's true. But then the mask came in and did like 4 wounds with her little double dance. The mask was in there poking. You gotta get it. Yeah, that's what you want. You just want weight of attacks. She's poking him. Round about noon when your appetite's poking at you. So, yeah, it's good builds. I agree. I like the Boulderhead. I agree, Brent. I think this is fun stuff. Anything else you got on Boulderhead? Anything else you want to call out or listicles?
Do we like any of the Thunder Tusk mount traits? I see there's one that I think is their only access to like an always strikes last ability, the Alvagor Ancient. This model has not made a charge move in the same turn, and units that are within 3 of this model at the start of the combat phase fight at the end of that combat phase. That is obviously not as good as lots of other armies' abilities to make you go last. Slanesh, sure. But I think this is maybe the... Like, if you were playing Boulderhead and you took a hero on a Thunder Tusk, maybe that's a decent take. I don't know.
Yeah, so, no, it's a good point. Tom, what do you think about Alvagor Ancient? You're absolutely right. Like, it's absolutely interesting. And by the way, I think it's actually the only interesting one in this thing, maybe? I think that's true.
Multiple units, too, right? I think it's
I mean, what I'll say is this. It's
yes,
a tech piece.
all enemy units.
It's all enemy units within 3, yeah.
Yeah, so it gives you a really interesting tech piece. And I do like it. If you put that Stonehorn, or if you put like one of those behind like 4 Iron
You meant
Guts,
Thunder Tusk, but I know what you meant.
Sorry. You put that Thunder Tusk behind like 4 Iron Guts, you're not going to shift that clump of units.
Sure.
Because what's going to happen is you're going to come in on those Thunder Guts and get within that always strikes last aura and then blow up.
Sure.
Striking after Iron Guts is bad.
Yeah. Like, so what I would say is that I think that there's, I think that it's a really interesting tech piece.
I agree with that in principle. It's the most interesting tech piece that has no place in any list.
Sure. I don't disagree with that statement.
It's too so let me say this. If that aura was 6 inches instead of 3, you'd make more room for it. Okay?
Yep.
That's actually the biggest deal in the world.
They have to be in combat with it.
Yes. Secondly, it's a very expensive piece that doesn't do much else on its own. Like, neither version of this thing, this Thunder Tusk thing, in the hero, right? Because it has to be the hero mounted, so we're not talking about just the random dudes. Neither hero version of this thing actually do much of anything.
Sure. They don't have a defined role.
The priest version is like okay, I guess. The Frost Lord's just a worse melee guy. Like, that's just, I don't know what you're doing there. The priest guy, at least he's a priest, but he's a very easy to kill priest. Like,
sure.
It's not a very tough model. And you're like really opening this dude up to just getting blown right off the table. And then like, okay.
Great delay there.
Yeah.
So really, if your heart is set on taking a hero on the Thunder Tusk and you didn't take a hero on the Stonehorn, then this is the trait you get.
Sure. Yeah, let me, like, I'll say I don't, when I say it's like, it's the coolest combo that probably just there's no room for. There's lots of heroes like this where you look at them and you go, yeah, that's good, or it does a cool thing, or I like it. But in the end, it's just actually not going to fit in any lists. Because
it's non-functional.
Because it's a cool trick on a weak model. Like, the Thunder Tusk doesn't do any actual damage in melee. he doesn't really do any damage shooting anymore because his frost wreathed ice is weak now, right? In a lot of cases. And his prayers are frankly kind of underwhelming, like for what you can get out of him. So
Yeti.
it's just like you look at that 340 points that Huskard on Thunder Tusk was, and you go, man, that's 60 points away from 48 wounds of ogres. And in what universe is that? In what universe is that a good trade, right? Like it just doesn't work mathematically, unfortunately. Like I wish it did, but it doesn't.
In the future, maybe. Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, a 12 wound shooty monster that doesn't shoot well, that has no melee power and has unreliable prayers for 340 points
could use a drop.
Yeah, even with its really cool trick. By the way, the problem with that cool trick of making people strike last is like, yes, it's great if you can get the perfect situation. Tom talks about setup where you've got like the Iron Guts and you park this dude right in the middle, and it's this wonderful objective sitter, and then everybody just goes and takes the other objectives that aren't him.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
no, it's true. It's true. I mean, what I would say is this. I think that it is a solid 260 point unit.
Sure. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. If it was like dropped way down, yeah, I'll buy that. Maybe 260, maybe even 240. Yeah, okay. I'm in for that.
Yeah, I think 240 because he is a hero. Like he is a hero keyword. Sure. Yeah, and so so like 260 I think is the right number. Like 260, 280. Like at that I'd be like, okay, I could maybe fit him in. Like that's an interesting. But at like 340?
Pass.
That's a pass, yeah. It's going to be a pass for me, dog. It's going to be a pass. All right, so, cool. As an aside, I'm just going to say this one more time. Like, I have the book over here. I'm looking at my digital version. And just one more time, I hate the placement of Path to Glory. Why do we place Path to Glory where we place Path to Glory? Can we please put it anywhere else in the book? It happens. It's been happening every time for years. It's just the worst. Please stop it.
Yeah.
Please.
It's an allegiance ability. Wait, no.
Please stop putting Path to Glory where you put it. I have no problem with Path to Glory as a concept. It's a perfectly fine, fun thing. Please stop putting it in the middle of my rules that I care about. Thank you. Okay. So anyway, like just put it at the very beginning or very end. Good Lord. All right, so let's keep talking. So, Tommy, what do you got? What's your tribal pick?
I mean, I'm gonna go Blood Gullet every day and Tuesday.
Sure.
The best one.
Because the problem is this: it's not that it's the best, even though it is. It's that it's
cool. Yeah.
It's doing everything I want it to do. Right? Like that's one of the differences here is that yes, the base ability is an extra spell and you cast an extra spell on all your butchers.
Hello.
So,
which is your butchers and your slaughtermasters, by the way, just to clarify.
They are
also
yes,
butchers.
because it's the butcher keyword.
Yep.
So it's kind of like Hollow Heart without the crazy cast bonus. And
Tom, are you telling me it's basically Hollow Heart?
No.
Like it's basically a time walk?
No, yeah, it's basically it's like that. Like
it's basically Hollow Heart. Got it.
We could say this. It's not basically Hollow Heart. But we could say the rest is ipsum lorem text.
Sure.
And you'd still have my attention.
Yeah.
Right?
Just for double casters, sure.
Just for a double caster in an army that doesn't have a lot of tools in this area. That's the key. Right? Mm-hmm. Like this is actually strengthening an area that they're not strong in.
Yeah, sure.
In spellcasting. Like they hit really hard. You don't really need them to hit really hard. More hard. Right? Like you could, harder. But I like harder. No, more hard. But at the end of the day, so it's strengthening an area that the army is not real strong in, which I like doing that. And then the command ability is basically then strengthening the thing that I want to run anyways, which is a whole bunch of buttons. So it's like doing everything I want it to do. And running how I want it to run, which is pairing up one of these gluttons who are like buffing wizards with a command ability that they're going to run with the gluttons and buff the gluttons. Like it's all super intuitive. The command trait, I like piling in 40 millimeter bases 3 more inches.
Oh, sure.
Right?
The drop of the red stuff.
Right. Like, I'm going to throw my general up forward already. He's probably going to be a butcher. And he's going to push deeper. You know, like, he's going to let one of those ogre units pile in 6. And that's pretty good. And then finally, the artifact of power is, I'll splash some healing. I mean, it's okay.
Sure.
Like they're all multi-wound models, and it's doing more of what you want to do anyway. So like, I look at this, and there's nothing bad here, and it's fairly spread out. 2 of them are increasing the offense, 1 is increasing the durability, and 1 is increasing utility. Like, it's doing everything that I kind of want it to do. Josh, in the comments, said that, yes, there's no spell bonus at all. That's actually not true. That's what the terrain does.
Yeah, sure.
Now,
but
it's
I mean, but at the same time,
counterintuitive because the terrain doesn't travel. I get
agree
that.
with Josh, because, look, let me sketch an alternate world for you here as well at the same time.
Okay.
Like, I agree with everything you're saying about Blood Gullet, by the way. I think it is the strongest faction. Tribe, whatever. But let me sketch an alternate world. Let's imagine that the Blood Gullet artifact list. Okay.
Yep.
Sorry, not the artifact list. Let's imagine just the regular Butcher artifact list. Because there is a battalion, by the way, that goes very well with this. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So you'll frequently have 2 magic items.
Yep.
Let's imagine that there is an artifact on there that just is like your classic, what a lot of people have. Add 1 to this caster's casting, unbinding, and dispelling rolls.
Sure.
Is that your go-to artifact most of the time?
Yes.
I agree. And that's the thing that's lacking. Like, again, that's not a killer. It's not an absolute,
right.
Like, it doesn't make it unplayable or bad or something. It's just like, oh, man. You know, there's like so many books have gotten that thing, that throwaway thing. All the orcs have some version of that.
Yep.
Right? Why don't the ogres have some version of that thing? I mean, they have good methods.
They have a terrain piece.
Sure. I would point out that Skaven have a terrain piece that do that too in 3 different places on the board, and have an artifact that do that. So, just saying.
Yeah, but that's Skaven. I mean, not everybody.
You're right. They are the best. All kneel before the verminous horde. At any rate. So there you go. Now the
counterpoint, maybe it's kind of cool that the thing that we would absolutely default to, it's kind of cool that we don't have it. Maybe.
I mean, sure. That's like
I'm that type of player. I'm that person.
It's also the classic game design argument. Yeah, if you make anything that's an auto include or an auto choice, it's kind of you might be making some bad design. So, sure.
No, like I think that I like Blood Gullet. I like everything that it's doing, and it's letting me build the way that I want to build.
Sure. Do you want to talk about the battalion that's going to go with this as well?
Sure.
We can talk a little about their battalions, because I actually think that they have decent battalions. I'm going to go so far as to say decent, especially the Gutbuster side. We'll talk about the BCR side in a moment and why their battalions make me sad.
I mean, let me say this. Like, one thing that this actually does is that, like, there's 2 battalions that go well here. Yep. One is good and one is bad. But regardless, they actually have 2 battalions that you can pretty easily move in between the 2. And the one that we're going to care about today is called Goremand. And what Goremand does is it's a Slaughtermaster, which is the guy that's dragging the cauldron behind him. 1 to 3 units of lead belchers, 1 to 3 units of gluttons, and a unit of iron guts, which is like most of your army.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things I do really like about this army can go very low drop. And I'm actually fascinated
really low drop.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by the variability of some of their... This army does have the potential to use multiple battalions. That's certainly on the table. It's got the potential to be low drop. And their battalions are nicely flexible. This is basically what we were asking for when we did the review of the city's battalions and complained that they were way too on rails, right? Where it was like 3 units of this thing you didn't want to take anyways. Whereas this, it's like, no, I would probably take this stuff anyways. I'm good.
Right, and I can take those lead belchers in like 2s,
right,
or in like blocks of 6. Right, like you can be flexible. You're not going to do that, but like you can be flexible with this, and you can fit most of your army in one of these, or you could mix it up and do a couple battalions.
Right.
So like and then anyways. So yes, I agree. The battalion, like imagine if the Stormcast battalions were like this. How different of a book in a meta would we have if Stormcast actually had battalions that had this range of like unit inclusions?
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
but they don't.
But they don't.
Regardless, so what this one does though is also useful, right?
Yep.
Which is the Slaughtermaster who's going to reach into that cauldron for that juicy +1 to hit. Can reach in twice.
Yeah, which is great. Like that's super duper good. It's super duper good.
I was already sold on not having 3 units of 2 lead belchers count toward my drops. I was pretty excited about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like we mentioned the lead belcher darts earlier. This battalion handles the lead belcher darts super well, right? Like you can have your big unit of gluttons, maybe 2. You can have your belcher darts and a 4 of iron guts and your slaughtermaster to lead it. There's most of your army in 1 drop. Bing, bang, boom, with a good ability, all at a pretty reasonable price, by the way. Like their battalions are, they've finally gotten battalions, I think, to where like they're not insanely priced. Like 140 feels, yeah, okay.
High. I mean, it feels good on sometimes it feels high.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think on this one that feels about right. Like it's a good ability
Agreed.
and a good unit mix for the majority of my army. Yeah, that feels like it's pretty much in the right place. So, okay, cool. I'm down with that. Like, I
totally agreed.
I don't mind that at all. Go ahead, Brent.
Oh, I just said me too.
Yeah, okay.
I also like the Gormand.
Yes. Now, you know, it's funny because it's your other choice here, the one that I think you were referencing, Tom, is probably the Butcher's Band, right? Which is the other one. That's the same thing, but with a Butcher at the lead. And because this isn't bolded, right? So this is either like literally the Slaughtermaster or the Butcher. It's not keyworded. And like it's the exact same spread of units, right?
Yep.
With just a less good
ability. Different hero.
Yeah.
A different hero and a less good ability.
Right. Yeah. So there's not much competition there. However, I don't hate the other 2, by the by, in here. I don't love them, but I don't hate them either. So like the Tyrant's Gut Guard, which is 1 Tyrant, 1 to 3 units of Iron Guts, and 0 to 2 Iron Blasters. And its ability is basically like
Guard the Tyrant.
Guard the Tyrant. Yeah, every time the Tyrant takes wounds, it gives him a 4-up shrug, and it passes off to the Iron Guts. Okay, fine. That's fine.
Which, I mean, it's fine, but like,
how many points is it? I'd rather just get another Tyrant.
Sure, it's 120 points, but it could
like,
be interesting.
Is the Tyrant worth protecting?
Probably not. But I actually my only flaw with the Tyrant's Gut Guard actually has nothing to do with that, and has more to do with the fact that it's not 0 to 3 Iron Blasters. Because if it was 0 to 3, I would love it for Underguts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I disagree. Yeah.
That's its actual limitation. Like its ability is whatever. You know, fine. And by the way, the Tyrant's Gut Guard's like 120, so it is actually a slightly cheaper battalion as well. So okay, fine. And then the Junk Mob, which I like the Junk Mob. It's fine enough. It's a goofy little fun thing. Jack is doing. Are you doing costume changes?
Oh no, this is Josh.
Oh, I'm sorry, Josh.
You can't see because his head's on top.
Yeah, it's cutting off your head. I'm sorry.
Right there, and I just had to show that the Seahawks beat the 49ers on Monday Night Football, baby. Hey, oh yeah. Hey,
T-shirt.
Hey, Vince, you the best, baby.
Thank you, sir.
I love Tom's ideas on them armies. He's great. And, you know, I have to come in and put him on blast.
More guest stars. This is awesome. This is great. I love it. I love it, buddy. So I like the junk mob too. It's fun enough for sort of silly armies. I don't think it's super competitive, but it's nice that if you want to use screens of Noblars, it only has attacks in the one scrap launcher you've got to take. But okay.
I'm calling bull. I don't hate scrap launchers.
Okay, well, you're pretty alone in that, but all right, I'm interested. Tell me why you don't hate scrap launchers.
Because it's a 120-point unit that has a chance to do 3d6 damage.
Okay. All right.
I mean, do more.
I mean, like, yeah, yes, but like it's 3 shots at 36 inches.
Well, 4
threes
if you're in
and
junk
fours,
mob, right?
Yeah, 4s if you're in junk mob. 3s and 4s, which you can bonus that. There are lots of bonusing things, right?
Okay.
And it does, against units of 10 or more models, it does a d6 damage.
No, it makes d6 attacks.
Okay, never mind. Just kidding.
No.
No.
Change your mind on that real fast. Yeah, you get 1 to hit, so it hits on 2s, which is cool. That's fine. And it makes d6 attacks instead with your piles of old scrap.
No. Add 1 to hit rolls and increase the damage characteristic to d6 for attacks made with piles. No, it increases the damage
you're
to
right.
d6.
I'm sorry. You're right. I did read it right.
Ha. So it goes 2s and 4s, d6 damage.
Right.
So in junk mobs, it's 4 attacks with on 2s and 4s doing d6 a pop. You drop that into witches. That's not bad for 120 points.
Where'd you get the 2s to hit?
He gets +1 hit on the scroll if it's targeting a unit of 10 or more.
Oh,
right.
Yeah.
And so like it. I mean, like for 120, it's not bad. That's what I'm gonna say.
All right, fair enough. Well, there you go. So, I mean, the point is, at least you do have a battalion this can fit into it, right?
Mm-hmm. I think. And that Noblar unit better be 60 Noblars.
Sure. Like as high body chaff units, the Noblars are okay.
Cheapest. I think they're the cheapest models in the game, right? Because 60 Noblars is 270 points. At that, 60 is anything.
60. What are Skaven? What are clan rats again?
40 for 200. You can't get up 60.
40 for 2.
I think they're just a little cheaper than clan rats. I think it's a cool thing to own if that's true.
I don't remember how much like stabas and stabas and shooters are, so I couldn't say off the top of my head. I need to look up the basic gits.
They're more than that. They're at least, I mean, they're 120 and 130, I think.
So
see, I see this and like I want to run a junk mob, but I don't want to do Noblars. I want to do halflings.
Go for it.
Sure.
Like
it'd be a good conversion. The old world lore was that halflings and ogres have the same genetic ancestor. This sort of genetic queue that is unknown that like diverged in an evolutionary path, and like because they can both eat like their own body weight and more. And so but the halflings just stayed small, but the ogres got large. And it was always like one of Tom and I's favorite pieces of old world lore. And yeah, sure, absolutely. Like it'd be a great conversion potential, and you could just replace the scrap launchers with hot pot upgrade conversions.
Right, like exactly. You're just doing a hot pot thing, and like the halfling team, the football team, is like 16 models for $35 or something.
There you go. All right.
Like so, like it's actually not it's not 16. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 for 35. Like that's not bad, Matt. Like on the numbers, for bodies.
That's pretty good.
So like
about $3 a dude. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, like and then you can get that discounted, obviously. So I think that like if I do anything ogre related, I'm gonna have a bunch of halflings hanging out.
All right, you've sold me slightly on the scrap launcher and its potential in some scenarios.
And you could do 2 scrap launchers and one screen of like min size like of Noblars. You know, like a min size Noblar, 2 scrap launchers. That's not bad. It gives you some range. Like you're not paying a lot for that range. And you're throwing 4 attacks. Say what?
So I still want the max unit of Noblars.
I mean, and you could do a max unit. That's fine. That's just a lot of conversion.
No, I mean,
lazy.
You're not wrong. It's an interesting, like, sort of backfield, sort of unit holder, right? So, what's the scrap launcher's range? I don't have that right in front of me. I'm sorry.
36 inches.
36. That's
36.
right. Okay.
Yeah. So that also.
So that's decent because what you're talking about for that, let's go ahead and walk this out, Tom. Let's take this to its logical conclusion. So we got 2 scrap launchers for 240 plus the Noblar pack. Let's min that out because we only need one of them, right, for the battalion. So that's 340 plus the battalion itself, right? So your junk mob is another 100, a nice cheap battalion, so that's pretty good. So for 440, a little less than a quarter of your army, you've got this sort of backfield thing launching basically 8 scrap shots a turn. You're gonna hit units that are 10 or more. So you're on 2s and 4s.
4s.
Yeah, for all of those. So let's see, you make those 8 attacks. You're gonna hit with basically let's be like nice and say you hit with 7 of them. You're gonna wound with 3 of them. Okay, on against 4-up save, 10 or more model units, and you're gonna do 9 damage. 10.5 if you want to do it exactly on the dice.
Sure.
Okay.
And like they take buffs. Like I know that's a really weird statement. But like I'm.
It's not terrible. I don't know that it's great.
Yeah.
But it's not terrible. It's
yeah.
okay.
It's not terrible. Is what I'm gonna say.
Sure.
Here's a question: outside of Underguts, do we like them more than Iron Blasters?
Oh, if you're not in Underguts, are they better than Iron Blasters?
Yes.
I mean, sadly, probably. Against units of 10 or more models, I think on the math, they are definitely better than Iron Blasters. Like,
where did that pre-roll go? Oh,
yeah,
no.
like if you're not in Iron Guts, on the math, it's probably it's. In fact, I don't have to think about it. It's definitely a better unit. Like 100%, it's a better unit. Shooting at 10 or more outside of Underguts, it's 100% a better unit. In fact, even in Underguts, so 3 Iron Blasters. And this is really funny. I happened to do all this math because I got into a big discussion with Doom and Darkness around this. Doing the math in Underguts, I'll talk about Underguts for a moment. I think Underguts is okay. I don't think it's bad. I think it's the next tribe we'll talk about. It's all right. This will be a good transition in there.
Sure.
If you've got 3 Iron Blasters in Underguts, making 2 attacks each, the average damage is 1 less than the 2 scrap launchers shooting a unit of 10 or more.
Sweet.
Against a 4-up save. Okay. With a much higher potential damage for the top end of that damage chart is way higher on the scrap launchers because of the insane number of potential D6s you have, right? You have 6 D6s with the Underguts Iron Blasters and 8 D6 with the scrap launchers. Now, that is also highly armor save dependent, right? Like, you know, yeah, armor save matters a lot. If you're like throwing scrap launchers into like Ungor packs or like packs of Gits, oh my god, will they do more damage than the Iron Blasters? Like at that point, it's just not even close. The scrap launcher is taking the Iron Blaster to the woodshed. Like it will deal so much more damage. Because then you're like anytime you get to a sort of 6-up save, you're overpaying for the rend, and it's just not doing anything anymore, right? And just the more shots win out. Yeah, okay.
Scrap launcher OP. We got it.
So Tom, you brought me all the way back around on the scrap launchers. Never mind. It's time to do some conversions. Here we go. All right.
Like again, they're not awesome.
No,
but it's not terrible.
You
like,
convinced me that they're a hot 5. You moved me from them being a 2 to like situations where 2 of them will outshoot 3 Iron Blasters. That's
you have.
By the way, that's a lot less points in the battalion.
Right.
That's for with with its guard unit around it of dumb Noblars. That's only 440 points, whereas the 3 Iron Blasters plus the thing they need to bonus them is like whatever more than that.
I know. I see it.
Yeah. All right. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. All right, so let's talk Underguts for a moment, though, because I think Underguts has some interesting potential.
I mean, are we going to talk about the elephant in the room here?
What?
I'm gonna put on some weight, but it's-
He looked
I
tall.
mean,
Wait.
look in the background.
I don't get it. What are we talking about? No.
Down this road?
Well, I think we lost oh, there we go. We're back. We lost the stream for a moment. It decided to drop again. So nobody just saw any of that conversation.
That's okay.
Oh, so let's talk about the elephant in the room, Vince. You see anything unusual on screen?
I don't see anything unusual on screen. I don't get it.
Of course not.
I was about to make a
Of
joke.
course not.
I'm painting. Wait, no, he's building something.
Oh,
Did Jack's brother come back in the room? I don't get it. I don't understand.
It'd get a lot louder.
There we go.
Apologize to your brother, because when he walked on camera, he had the top half of his head cut off. And I thought he
Yeah.
was you.
He's just like, hey.
Yeah, because he was holding the Seahawks jersey. And I was like, oh. Jack, did you change costumes?
amazing.
All right.
Okay, fine. We won't say anything. Vince isn't going to make a big deal out of it. We're going to move on.
Yeah, I don't see
Let's
anything
move
weird.
on. Sorry, Jack.
All right, so Underguts. Underguts is interesting. It's obviously the makes your shooting better but not great thing.
Yeah.
I actually think the good ability of it is the lead belcher range moving to 18 inches from 12. I think it makes that much more
Yeah.
viable. I think lead belchers are already an interesting counterpoint to some amount of gluttons. Like I would still always have a 12er of gluttons, but
Sure,
lead belchers are interesting because of that shooting potential. Like the ability to have shooting and to project power, especially in the current meta, is itself very powerful. Now, I don't know that you're going to blow down a Gothazar Harvester with some lead belchers. I wouldn't put money on that, frankly.
Mm-mm. Nope.
But like, there's plenty of fairly weak 5-wound heroes that sit behind lines that like an 18-inch range out of those guns will give you the ability to shoot down.
Mhm.
Okay. But even just the ability to soften a unit and then charge into it is good. The damage tends to be fairly equivalent to what you'll get out of non-max buffed gluttons. Like if gluttons are at max, and buffed, they get way better because there's more interesting ways to buff them. But nonetheless, there it is. It's a little more versatility, but a little less top-end power for the buffs. You do have your command ability to get your Iron Blasters shooting more that we discussed. So great. You can add an attack to them. By the way, if you aren't adding the attack to them, I am pretty sure Iron Blasters are hot garbage.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Yep.
they're just bad. If you are adding the attack, they're pretty good. They're good. They're like slightly worse than scrap launchers.
It made the narrative player sigh.
I understand. They're
I'm pretty bummed about them.
they're okay. Let's call it a 5. Can I get a 5 out of 10? Is anybody going to
Okay.
fight me on a 5 out of 10 in Underguts?
No, that's fine. Here's the takeaway. You're not going to play Underguts.
Sure.
I really liked lead belchers yesterday. I might try it.
Just build scrap launchers.
Sure. Yeah, you can use Underguts, and that's fine. You do get the powder keg, which is a perfectly fine little magic weapon. It's fine. It's a little horde damage thing. It lets you do a hysterical frenzy to a unit, which okay.
Do some what you see is what you get too. You get the little Noblar that's holding the powder.
Yeah,
keg.
it's holding the keg.
Boom
Yeah,
on the
absolutely.
base.
Yeah. It's a perfectly fine little one-shot magic item that can do some significant damage, especially against bigger units. By the way, like it can be actually, against like a unit of 20 or more models, it's actually like pretty freaking destructive because it's a 4+ D3 mortal wounder. Like that's a heck of a horde clear.
Like
So-
9 dice. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not bad. As
And
far
it-
as those kind of one-shot things go, it will do a heck of a damage to a horde. Because that's not limited. Like, if you do throw
Right.
that into a unit of 60 gits or something,
Yep.
like, it's
You're
just...
rolling some dice.
There's no ones fail. So, like, if you just throw that into a unit of 60 gits, it does 60 D3 mortal wounds, I think. unless I'm missing something, right?
I thought you just roll 9 dice.
No.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Okay. If you do so, pick one enemy unit within 9 inches of the barrier that is visible to them. Oh, sorry, and roll 6 dice, not 63. Just 6 dice. Yes. So it'll do some good stuff. I was
still
overstating
pretty
the dice.
bad.
It's still pretty good. You'll just get 6d3, which is not bad. I apologize, everyone. I overstated the dice number. Yes, 6d3, not 60d3. Big difference there. A little bit of a difference. But yeah, it's okay. It can do some decent enough damage. But it's not great. The command trait's the most underwhelming. Good lord, why? Subtract 1 from wound rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target the general on a Tuesday. If your name is Steve. Like, I hate things like this.
That still won't save me from Jack.
Like why? For just the general. Like, a good version of this command trait would have been subtract 1 from missile weapons that target this army. Or anybody within 12 inches of the general. Or whatever. You know, something like that. Some range of the thing. Yeah, just like something they can carry around and protect the rest of the army from shooting. Like, there's a non-Garbo version of this, but this is not it, right? So, there you go. But yeah, like, Underguts I would rate as the okay one. It's fine. If you like shooty stuff, if you want to make better use of lead belchers, if you have iron blasters and want to make them actually do something, this is the place to look. Because they don't. I agree with you, Tom. Like, you've completely turned me around on scrap launchers. I am now pro scrap launcher in Junk Mob. I was already liking Junk Mob as a funny trick. Now I'm way more on the Junk Mob train.
When Games Workshop was streaming, they didn't even have to tell me like what it did. They're just like, there's a Noblar battalion called a Noblar Junk Mob. And I was like, thank you.
Go on.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me more.
Yeah.
They didn't, but...
all right, so let's shall we just transition into another tribe right away? Do we have anything else to say on Underguts?
Underguts.
Yeah, that's it. They're fun. Yay. If you like the shooty bang bang, it makes them okay at that. But you're still going to be charging, you're still going to be fighting in melee, you're still ogres. It's not a castle up dwarf army. That's never what it's going to be, right? Ever. Okay. So the I want to talk about Winterbite for a moment, because I just want to use this to transition into some things. Winterbite is an interesting and somewhat disappointing tribe to me for so many reasons, but let's get into it. So first of all, their ability is Ghost in the Blizzard. You subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target Winterbite units wholly within your territory. See, that's how you structure a neg 1 rule. See that? How that's better? Because then it's your whole army, and as long as they're in your territory, it's neg 1 to be hit from shooting. That actually would be annoying to Jack's army. Because you have basically, during round 1, your army-wide neg 1 to be hit by shooting weapons. That's great. Okay, cool.
That's functional.
That's functional.
It's doing something.
It's doing something. Now, we won't talk about the fact that there's still not a lot of shooting armies in the meta, and many armies are just all melee, and this ability will literally do 0 against probably like 80% of the current field. Like, if you play Iron Jaws or a non-Kanenruck Bone Splitters or FEC or Slanesh or non-Shootcast, Stormcast or Night Haunt or... I could keep going.
Hey man, those Fire Slayer axes are hitting on 6s now.
Yeah, or Fire Slayers or Daughters. Then this ability basically does nothing and just says blip, 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 blip. So, okay. But for those time... Hey, when that KO book comes out, look, you're going to be real glad that this ability exists. All right. So, next up, you have another thing that bonuses a priest you don't care about. So, great. That's fun. Command ability, Howl of the Wild. You can use this command ability at the start of the combat phase. If you do so, pick 1 friendly Winterbite hero. Friendly Winterbite Frost Sabers units and Winterbite Icefall Yetis units, wholly within 12 inches of that hero, can fight at the start of the combat phase. These units cannot fight again in that combat phase unless an ability or spell allows them to fight more than once. So you read that and you're like, sweet, some ASF. We love that. Everybody loves Always Strikes First. That is It has been universally agreed to be an ability that everybody loves all the time. It's never bad. Everybody loves ASF. Okay, I think we all agree on that.
Hey, the tyrant is here.
Non-controversial statement that everybody always loves, always strikes first. But here's what I hate about this ability. Why is this ability triggered at the start of the combat phase? Oh, and we're not sending data again, so we'll give it a moment. We'll wait. We'll wait for this to happen. As the stream drops in and out. How fun. It's only happened like 3 times, so that's not too bad.
Yeah.
It should catch back up in a second. It's still counting, like it's still streaming. It's just stupid YouTube server. And we're back. All right, we'll wait for the stream to catch back up. There we go. All right. Sorry, everybody. The stream has dropped in and out because, oh, look at that. Darren Latham in the chat. Doom and Darkness in the chat. Whoa, what is going on here? We got a party going on. Darren, you picked a rough show to start when YouTube servers, or to join and comment because YouTube servers are flawed, so I apologize. At any rate.
All my friends. No.
Yes. So let's talk about some Winter Bite. My only issue with this Winter Bite rule is I don't like that it triggers at the start of the combat phase when other things that always strikes first will kill you before you can activate it. The only way that...
I mean, stop being a negative Nancy. Like, you know what? This is... I'm gonna counter. This is the exact type of units that you want to have always strikes first.
I agree, because they're all made of paper. They're
right.
These are units that die if they get touched. I agree.
They're units that die if they get touched. They're combat effective, but they're not monsters. Like they have a lot of attacks. They don't have a lot of Ren, but they're fine. They do work.
They get the buff,
but they don't. Go ahead.
I said they get the buff from the command trait if he's the general.
Right. But they don't dominate the game.
No.
Right.
No.
And so these are the units that I want to see always strikes first with.
Sure. Yeah.
So stop being so negative. I like it. It's themed, and you get to paint things icy.
No, that's fine. I'm just saying it's like those are the little things that kind of drive me crazy because it is what it is, whatever. And by the way, it could just be the unit gets gibbed. I understand even if you could activate from 6 inch or sorry, stop throwing me off, Doom, my Red Doom's comment. Even if you could activate it at the end of their charge phase, if they ASF you and it's their turn, they're still going to get to go first. I totally agree and understand. But if they don't, that would still give your other units ASF as well to then fight in that sort of way. But anyway, it's fine. I think the real challenge, which is what Doom was going to comment on, which is that the Yeti 6-inch pile-in is kind of more often how you end up activating this anyways. This kind of thing, you keep them out of combat, and they just pile in from 6 inches away, right?
But there's some unique utility here, though. Let me push back. Because now you're actually playing with 6-inch pile-in, or always strikes first, or always strikes last. Because you do potentially, in the more BCR-related, suite of stuff, you could have a Thunder Tusk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's fine. I mean, we talked earlier about why that guy is what he is, but yes, it's fine. And by the way, I do like the command trait, as you pointed out. And there are other things you can take, by the way, to buff Yetis and stuff up in the so that's cool. I like add 1 to wound rules for these guys. That's cool. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I wanted to talk about Winter Bite because there's just a couple little things here. The artifact is one of the funniest artifacts that won't actually do anything, but it's a super fun thing to roll for every turn. What an exciting thing to roll for. You get to pick one of the bearer's melee weapons, and at the start of each battle round, you roll a die on a 5+. You add 1 to the damage inflicted by attacks made with that weapon for the rest of the battle, and the effect is cumulative. On numbers, that means maybe you get +2 damage over the course of a 5-round game, which is not great.
But Chuck's gonna play this one.
This is the
and
crazy
he's gonna
thing.
love it.
Yeah,
yes.
It's so exciting for you to make that roll every round. So that's a funny.
7 damage tyrant. There we go.
There it is. Yes, do I get it? Do I get it? Oh, yay! And it'll be when you roll that 5+, you will be so happy. That is one of those fun rolls. That's just one of the most fun things to do. So I wanted to talk about. I think Winter Bite is cool. I do like the winter themed stuff. That's super fun. But I wanted to use this to transition into to talk a little bit about the battalions here, and
Sure.
talk about my favorite BCR battalion, which is Skull.
Yeah.
I like.
Tell us about it, Vince.
Yeah, I like Skull a lot, man. I'm down with Skull. I'm down with the Skull. Skull has been showing up as either one of my battalions, like either the battalion that I take or one of 2 battalions that I take. It is relatively cheap. It is a 100-point battalion, which I rather enjoy. I like me some cheapy battalions. And I really like how this one's built. So Skull allows you to take 1 to 6 Icebrow Hunters and 2 to 10 2 to 10 years, man. 10 2 to 10.
Good callback.
That is, thank you. I don't know that I've ever seen something say 10 on the number of selectable units in a battalion before. Is there any other battalion in the game that allows for 10 of a unit to be selected?
Yes, absolutely.
What?
That
isn't a mega battalion. Oh, fair enough.
No, Change Host.
You're right.
Change Host does.
Yeah.
In old Clan Pestilence, it just said 2+.
That doesn't.
So
count.
you could have any
Sure.
number of units
That
in
doesn't count.
the. Insane.
Fair enough. All right, so 2 to 10 units of Frost Sabers. And what I like about it is you add 1 to the charge rolls for units from this battalion while they are wholly within 12 inches of another unit from this battalion. Fantastic. Icebrow Hunters I actually like quite a bit. They are one of the depressing spots to me at the same time that I love them. Like, what I mean by that is just it feels like some rules cleanup wasn't done on the scroll. Like, they still have some of the goofy, like, you can't do this thing to make this other ranged attack, and just like, why did that stuff need to happen? It just still has like needless complexity on the Icebrow Hunter scroll. That just doesn't.
You're saying from a design standpoint.
Yeah. From a design standpoint, it has some needless stuff on there that doesn't really need to be there. This scroll could have been cleaned up. Okay. But I like him conceptually. Like, that is to say, like, ranged attacks fine. He can start an ambush automatically, which is cool. Like, instead of setting him up, you can just place him to the side. You can do a null deploy army with 2 of these battalions. If you're inclined to pull something like that, you literally can null deploy this army with 2 Skull battalions. So that's funny. Because everybody can start an ambush and everybody can take their kitty cats with them. So hilarious. And you know, because they get to set up. They have to show up by the 3rd turn as per normal, or they're destroyed. And they have to show up more than 9 inches away from, enemy units and blah 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 blah, standard stuff. But I like how they show up and their kitty cats can join them. They can bring 1 unit of kitty cats with them. There's a command trait that they can take 2 units of kitty cats, which you won't have in Winter Bite anyways. But the +1 to charge on the battalion is really good because you're showing up 9 inches away, giving you the good old 8 to charge. So that's
well. Don't the cats already get a bonus to charge?
Oh, the kitty cats themselves? You're asking, like, do they have their own? They do, yes.
If they're near the hunter that they deep strike with, yeah.
Yes, which is why this is great. Like, he's on an 8 because he gets the bonus from Skull, putting him on the 8. And the kitty cats go on a 5 because they get +4 total.
Yeah. You know what just the saddest part about this whole thing is?
Well, I'm ready.
Break my heart.
Yeah, what do you there's nothing sad about this. I love these kitty cats and all their crazy and the crazy charging thing. Like, 5s to charge are pretty great.
Hold on. Kitty cats are 2 for $18.
But
and they're
look,
web store exclusive.
Okay, number 1, you're just gonna use Thunderwolves or whatever, right? Like, you're gonna use some kind of big wolf. There's tons of plastic wolves. Number 2, I'm confident that any day now that new Warhammer Underworlds warband is going to release that we saw in the cards, as I mentioned at the top, and it's going to give us a new sculpt of kitty cats and hunters, and there will be much rejoicing. That's all I'm saying.
How many kitty cats do you think would go in that on the battalion or on the Underworlds battalion or warband?
3. It'll be a weird number so it doesn't match exactly to the units. So it's like hot dogs and hot dog buns.
At least the skull is 1 to 6 Icebrow Hunters. So if
Yeah.
you have to buy the Underworld's warband like 6 times,
Yeah, absolutely.
you're still good.
You're still good. And by the way, I do think like so Winterbite I don't think in the end is worth it. I like these dudes in Skull without Winterbite. I actually really like the Hunter is a great general. He has a really sweet command trait where every round he's in ambush, he gives you D3 command points, like for being off board, which is super cool. So
I'm just gonna leave that dude there all game, and I'll get 5d5.
Yeah, it's pretty great. 5d3. Yes, he'll be slain on the 4th battle round. But yes,
Shh, don't ruin this for me.
Sure. But like the fact that you can null deploy, or the fact that you can have this threat, the fact that this stuff can show up kind of anywhere, and
it's
have
good
a
for
really
ogres.
decent charge, I think it's a really good threat. I think the battalion's good. I think the units are good. Frost Saber's like, okay, these things will just like fold if they get hit. You're correct. But even that doesn't really make me want to go for the ASF of Winterbite. I just think they're still better being like kitty cats and a hunter. And like I'm building some kitty cats and hunters for my army, man. I'm excited. Like I think these guys are great. I converted up a hunter for myself. I think hunters are a great chance. Look, if you don't like the old hunter, it's a great chance for a conversion. And just to sidetrack here for a moment, I forgot to mention this in my 40,000 foot view, but I think this is a really important point to make. And I'm sad that I forgot to make it earlier, but I'll say it now. Ogres are a great new player army. I stand behind that.
Yep.
The sculpts are very new player friendly to paint. It is relatively low model count. Could be very low model count if you went like heavy BCR.
Like,
Older head.
6 monster trucks.
Could be like 6 monster trucks driving around, yeah. It's a lot of textures and stuff that are fun to do. It takes well to things like washes and contrast paints. It lets you experiment on bigger surfaces. Like they have big features. So you're not like, it lets you really get comfortable with, it has very defined musculature. You can do fun things like weathering on these guys and it totally fits and looks cool. Right. So like, I think this army is extremely new player friendly.
You see Peachy's man-eaters
We disconnected
that they shared.
again. Hold on. And we're back.
Sorry about that.
All right.
As I was saying, did you see Peachy's man-eaters that he was sharing out?
I did.
Where he they were so good. I loved it. Like I loved his custom.
They were so good. Stormcast man-eaters and Fire Slayers man-eaters. They were so sweet. Like,
And
yes.
it's that tradition of converted models for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like,
It made me sad that I don't like the unit.
oh, man-eaters? I like man-eaters just fine. I have a unit of 3 in my big 24-hour to paint a 2,000K army. I've got 3 man-eaters in there. They're the original man-eaters because that's what I had, but I'll probably convert more at some time in the future. But yeah, like man-eaters are great to convert. Like this is such a new player-friendly army to just collect and play and have fun with. The rules are streamlined in a relatively simple way where like it doesn't throw you with a lot of really complex interactions. Like we're going to talk about Bone Daddies next week, and there is no way I would recommend somebody who's new pick that army up. That is a nightmare.
It's a trap.
Forget about that. Like that is your second or third army. Okay, like where you've got the experience to understand complex interactions. Ogres are new player friendly. They're fun. Great. Love them. So,
Do we also think that new players, at least this is in my experience, have the compulsion to start converting? Even they've only built like 5 models, like, but I want to put this on there, and you're like, wait, slow down. But also, yes, this is a super cool part of this hobby. Do whatever you want.
100%. And ogres are a great one to do it with because they are more like ramshackle, and it's okay. Like if somebody just starts taking some shields and gluing it on their shoulder and stuff, and like, this is my man-eater now because he has different weapons, and I glued an extra pistol on his belt and put some big shields on it, or on his, he's using his shoulder pads and an empire feather into his, stuck it on the side of his head. Like, yeah, ta-da, great, boom. Like,
I love that they have that section in the book too.
Yeah, it's, It's so good. Like, there is a whole conversion section and painting section in this book that's really strong.
Yeah.
We don't often talk about that stuff enough, but that was A+ stuff in this one. Because it does help get people over that fear. I think even they realized that this army just has great conversion capability, and they've been talking about it. And yeah, wonderful.
And rightfully so. I'm glad.
Yes, absolutely. All right, so I think that's all the tribes we wanna talk about. So, because I don't think the other 2 tribes are worth really discussing in great detail. But I do want to kind of talk about just now. Let's swing back. Oh, the other 3 BCR battalions are all also like not good. I don't know what else to say, man. They're just, yeah. Nope. Moving on. Huskards on Stonehorns, huh? Right on. So, thank you. Next.
I was gonna say, wait, is that the Eurobad? Because I think the Eurobad's I think it's kind of cool.
Hey, you know what? Go ahead. Give me a defense. Look, I have been turned around on scrap launchers in this show, and I am now 100% team scrap launcher. As by the end of the show, I'm going to be a 10 out of 10 on scrap launchers if this continues.
You're welcome, world. You're welcome.
So, all right. Tell me, Eurobad is 1 Huskard on Stonehorn, 1 to 3 Stonehorn Beast Riders, and 2 to 4 Mournfang pack units. Please, I'll let you go from there. Tell us about the ability and why you think Eurobad is interesting.
Okay.
I will point out that all of these do have bad in the title, which is perhaps a bit on the nose. But anyways, continue.
Okay, the extra mortal wounds are maybe okay. You have a lot of attacks with the Mournfangs. Then this is where like my logic train goes. This is 2 Beast Claw Raider start battalion boxes.
Okay.
So if you're looking to build up an army quickly, I think that's pretty good. But okay, so we know that like we agreed the prayers for the Huskard are disappointing.
Yes.
But let me try and pull it because his command ability though to give the Mournfangs the Mournfangs extra damage on the charge. Do we like that? That's kind of the one thing is like, okay, well, yeah, if we're really saying that like the Frostlord versus the Huskard, if we don't even really care about like what extra damage the Frostlord does, then maybe it's having a command ability that I think is better than the Frostlord's command ability. Is that worth it? Not a great argument, but this is the one. This is at least the one battalion that I saw there, and I was like, okay, I would think about this if I was doing all Beast Claw Riders.
Sure, and you wanted to be Mournfang heavy.
Sure.
Okay.
Or at least 2 units. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 units or 4. Sure.
My only issue with the command ability is it only works. It only works on
fully within 12.
Well, it only works on 1 Mournfang pack, right? Yeah, I don't like. It'd be neat if it was sort of a bubble thing that it hit all the Mournfang packs around him. Then I'd kind of be more down with that because then I could like trigger it on multiple units and charge in.
That's like the Frost
ability. Well, you don't even have the room for that though. It's wholly within 12, and like with their bases,
that's a lot of space, dude. Wholly within 12 is huge.
Right.
That's so much room on the board.
The Huskard has to charge 2. And make
right, like because if they get in and he does not, this ability does not fire off.
Sure, I mean depending on the charge,
because
unless you're doing 3-inch charges, but okay.
Yes, and like I'm thinking about like everybody's pushing up, and you're gonna have like a 6 to 9 inch charge on everybody.
Yeah, sure. If you've got a long charge. Here's what I'll say. I agree with you, Brent, on this regard. We haven't talked about Mournfang much. Mournfang are like, okay. They probably need a little bit of a points adjustment. They're probably still a little bit too high. But if you love Mournfang and you wanted to run them, here's what I'll say. You're right that I think this is the way to do it. Right?
Like 3 on the charge. That's pretty... Yeah. Pretty good, right?
No, I mean it is. You're right. They make a lot of those attacks, right? Because that's the thing they're making 4 attacks of. Moving that to damage 3 is not terrible. Like if you're like, yes, I'm all about Mournfang. I love them. I think they're super cool. Which, by the way, they are super cool models. Like, yes, that's one of the things that's kind of like these guys are sweet as models. Okay, Rhinox look awesome. These ogres on top look awesome. These are good looking models. And so if that's your jam and you want to go with the start collecting and get it going, I will grant you the Euro Bad's probably the way to do it, because I think it is the best of the bad. It's the best of the bad battalions. You can take that however I mean it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, and yes, I think that is like, that's probably the best. That's making the most hay of it. Yes, I don't know if you're Rumpelstiltskin spinning straw into gold, but you're spinning straw into like copper, so that's valuable still. That's nice.
Yeah. At the beginning, I said I would be overly optimistic and positive.
Yeah.
So if you'll give me it is the best of the bad battalions, I'll take it.
Yeah. And you know, Doom points out that you can dart with these guys as well. What he's talking about is like using them as ultra heavy sort of fast chaff with the iron fists, where they always kick back mortal wounds, right? Because if they roll the 6, so like things that can get where like if units like witch elves or plague monks or something hit them and just roll tons of attacks, because it's just every roll of
6 will bounce mortals.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Every unmodified 6 roll, because you have to make a save for everything that's dealt. So if they hit you with 130 attacks and wound with 100 of them, you get to roll and deal like 16 mortal wounds back to them, right? Like, yeah, that unit's dead, but who cares? It did what it was supposed to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather just buy Harpies at 80 points.
Well, I mean, this is destruction, man. That's not how this works. But yeah, no, I agree. Like, those darts are good, and these guys are fast enough to actually be pretty mobile, like, you know, chaff in that way. So yeah, I'm down with that. They can get hungry. They're ogres. They can get hungry. They can move 11. I'm down with that. For ultra heavy chaff, and they are on big bases, so they can take up but they can have a big board presence.
Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't think Mournfang are bad in any way. I just think it's interesting. Like, I find them tough to fit into most lists. But I haven't written a lot of BCR specific lists, and so maybe there's a better, like, this Eurobad could be the way to do that, Brent. I agree. Yeah, 100%. All right, I want to swing back through some of the command traits, artifacts, and things like that we didn't touch on, because, you know, in the tribes, we weren't really, those are oftentimes decided. And I just want to have each of us talk about a couple that we think are pretty cool, because there are some cool ones up here. Like, going tribeless, I think, is a valid choice here, which, kudos. They have done this now twice, in that I think this isn't quite on the same level as, like, the Iron Jaws, where every time I'm just like, man, I don't know, you know, do I go with you know, one of the chamber enclave tribes, or do I go with or do I just go tribeless and pick the stuff out of the book? That's a really hard decision in Iron Jaws. I think here it's still an interesting decision. It's not as close, but it's still pretty close. So
once we got to like Underguts, I was like, you could probably just not take a Mawtribe.
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. Absolutely. So obviously these are split up. These are very divided, which I actually don't mind. So, like, you've got a list of Tyrant, a list of Butcher, a list of Frostlord or Huskard, and a list of Icebrow Hunter, which, cool, super great. I love stuff like that. That's great. I like when those are broken out. I already talked about one of the ones that I really love in the command traits, which is Winter Ranger. For the Icebrow Hunters, where at the start of each of your hero phases, if this general is in ambush, you gain D3 additional command points, which I super dig. I think that one is awesome. Like, I think that one is pretty darn cool. What else do y'all gentlemen like in this section? Out of any of these, by the way.
I like Crushing Bulk on the Tyrant.
Okay.
It's simple, but when we were kind of the abilities, Trampling Charge. So, like in the game yesterday, I thought that rule was really nice. Like, even if it's just a couple like chip damage, you know, a couple little mortal wounds here, the fact that every hero and every, you know, unit of 2 lead belchers is still making that roll and putting out a couple mortal wounds, I think is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
This was an exceptionally good roll that I charged with the Mournfangs. So there's 4 of them. And I did 6 mortal wounds on my 10 charge, which, yeah, shouldn't have happened. But, like, I kind of get into where there's potential to do something crazy. So it's like, okay, maybe the average damage on it is not that high. Yeah, that's probably what you want to play for. But sometimes I feel like I want to play for, well, potentially you could 12 mortal wounds. And so something like this on the Tyrant, like if you get a nice 10-inch charge.
Mhm.
Maybe that could happen. Then on 4-ups, you're doing mortal wounds because then he's treated as a monster. That's
Also, it's just thematically awesome because the Tyrant is like a super cool dude. Like, it's a super cool model. And just like you want that dude to be big and scary and to be rolling into people hard. And this
Ogre.
kind of does that. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Somebody. So I like both those reasons. I think it'll do some damage, and yeah, it's fun. It's cool.
I also like Killer Reputation while we're on the Tyrant table, which just gives you a second big name. Like, there are decent big names, so that's cool. Getting to pick 2 of them. You can't pick 2 of the same, but I don't care. That's fine. Like, being able to give him a 3-up save and is good.
Yeah.
Yep. What else are you liking, Tom?
I'm a fan of I like tech tools, and the Frostfell Aura is certainly one of those.
Yeah. Sure.
I think so. This is on the Beast Claw table for Husk Guards and Frost Lords for generals. In that world where we're building like a Crunch Horn, like you have a Murder Horn and you have a Crunch Horn, the putting the enemy units within 3 inches cannot retreat on your Crunch Horn. Like, so as a really highly like defensive, tanky, ethereal unit that is survivable and can hold another like high armor unit and then just grind through and not let them actually run away that's really interesting to me.
Yeah, like if you're not in Boulderhead, right? And so or maybe if you're in the case where you have a single Crunch Horn in maybe an otherwise Gutbuster flavored army.
Yeah.
Like maybe you've got one monster truck in your otherwise just pile of ogres. Yeah, I think that can be a solid pick, 100%. Because I agree. Like, it makes that dude real scary to anvils. Because if he can pin the anvil before they get on an objective or be where they need to be,
they can't do their job.
They can't do their job. They're just stuck there fighting this thing they will never kill.
Dying. Oh no.
Yeah, they're just gonna die. Like, they will just sit there and die. It's it's pretty.
Isn't that delightful?
It is pretty delightful. Yeah, it's wonderful. No, I agree. I think the Frostfell Aura is pretty sweet. Doom gave a shout out for filthy hygiene, which is one of the questionable hygiene, I think is what you mean there. Which is the one that's neg1 to hit rolls for attacks made by enemy units within 6 inches of the general. Pretty powerful on like a Butcher or Slaughtermaster, right? Because that guy will often be within 6 inches of the enemy unit fighting your Gluttons, but not actually in combat himself, or sometimes to be in combat. But like, the point is he's often running around with Gluttons, and giving everybody neg1 to hit your Gluttons is, I looked that up. Let me check the resources. Yeah, that's good. It's a good thing. Because
they're pretty good in combat. I'd throw him in there.
Oh, sure. Like, he can be in combat too. I'm just saying, like, sometimes he will, sometimes he won't. But this has that 6-inch aura that I was talking about, makes all the difference.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah. Dig it. All right. Cool. Any artifacts that you happen to like?
Well, let me find the Tyrant guns.
I just Sky Titan scatter pistols.
You can tell.
Sure.
I gotta pull that up again. I went the wrong way. So it makes his pistols become 6 attacks instead of 2. I put 3 wounds on a steam tank before I charged it, and then did 9 damage in combat. So the Tyrant just like one turn ripped apart a steam tank yesterday. That was pretty satisfying. But I was like, but if I could shoot 6 times, those are all D3 damage each. I think that's pretty cool.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right.
What's it called? Where is it? Sky Titan scatter pistols. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like his gruesome trophy rack. I mean, the +1 to hit rolls. Obviously, you're going to use that in sort of your underguts thing because it's just +1 to hit rolls, period.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, cool. Because meaning that you can actually get the cannon firing more accurately. So that's cool.
Oh, yeah, that is cool. And it buffs him too. So when he goes up and challenges a monster or hero, take him down.
Yep. Yeah, I'm trying to think of just anything else. Tom, what grabs your attention out of this list? Anything? Any of the artifacts you like?
again, like I do kind of like gruesome trophy rack.
Yeah, sure. Yes. It's real good. It's real good. Even if you're not using it for the Iron Blaster trick, it's just pretty good. Like +1 to hit is pretty good. I mean, it's only against monsters or heroes, but okay. Many of the things you want to kill in this game are monsters or heroes. So, sure.
Yeah. I mean,
if you want a super fast tyrant, the Grol's gut plate that makes him move 4 when he's hungry is funny. He can be a zippy little guy running around, but you know, probably better. But you'd probably just give him the thermal rider cloak would be the better choice there, because then he's +4 and he's moving flying all the time. So cool.
I mean, the other obvious one that I must have missed it, or maybe I missed it. Did you guys talk about the rotting dank hold spores?
No, it was what I was going to talk about next. You want to talk about them rotting dank hold spores? Because I actually like the rotting dank hold spores.
Yeah, I kind of do too. So it's a once per battle like item. So it's not something that like you're going to use repeatedly. But what it does is pick an enemy unit within 6 inches of the bear at the start of your hero phase. And you roll a dice for the number of models in that unit. Every 4 up is a mortal wound.
Yeah.
So
pretty good.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Like, and the key is it's not wholly within. Like, so there's not a there's no restriction on so you just have to get within sniffing distance of a horde.
Get the toe of one guy. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can cut a unit of goblins in half.
Right. Yeah.
And you didn't have to cast a spell or anything to do it.
Right. You just do it.
Yeah. You just do it. That is why I like this. It's not like on a 2+ or 3+ this thing happens. It's just no, once per battle, if you're in range, you do some serious horde thinning. Which yes, I like.
Right.
Great for objective type of clearing stuff before, when your units are going in. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Oh, that's an interesting question. Josh asks, he's been toying with the idea of the Bone Grinder Gargant. Any thoughts on the 400-point giant? So the big giant, because they can ally with giants, obviously.
Yeah. Good.
I don't have any thoughts on it. Was all I was gonna say. So go ahead, Tom, if you got him.
I don't know what he does.
400 points, huh? I'll just take 12 gluttons. Right?
Okay. Sure. No, I mean you're right. Anything that's 400 points in this army gets stacked against 12 gluttons. You're right.
Right. And I'm 48 wounds, way higher damage potential, can cap objectives better. I don't know what the giant's doing.
Being pretty awesome.
I mean,
doesn't he pile in from 6 inches?
You got him.
Kind of a cool trick.
Yeah, guess what? So do my gluttons in
Well, they don't pile in from 6 inches away. I think he has the true.
Oh no,
pile in.
He has the true. Yeah,
I'll
take the 12.
I'll openly admit it's been a long time since I've looked at the bone.
I'll take the punch and then pile in 6 inches using my blood gullet.
Fair enough.
Trait.
Okay.
So I don't rate it. Is the answer.
Okay. Fair enough. All right.
I think if you bought the model, you got to use it though.
Sure.
So if Josh _ if you already have Bone Grinder Gargant, get your money's worth. But if not, maybe hold off.
It is a
you have to use it.
It is it is a sweet giant model, and when I say giant, I mean that in both senses of the word. That thing it's ridiculously huge. Yes, which I do love. Look, I love giants. We all know. I love me some giants. I have a whole giant army. So I've got all the giants. I'm down with that. So anytime that Battle Tome Giants comes out, Gargant. Anytime the Gargant Battle Tome comes out, we just put that out there into the ether. If you're looking for expansion armies, yes, please. I'll take the all giant army. I'll have about as many figs. I'll probably have more figs than the BCR army still. So that's fine. Just give me the I also count as 10 on an objective thing and I'm good. Or you know what? Don't. I don't care. I don't need it. I'll still play it. Just all giants. I want big giants. I want different giants. I want smart giants. I want shamanistic giants that are priests and spellcasting giants. Just crack that open. Just giants everywhere. Coming down from they get annoyed in, maybe the giants have been hanging out in Heish or something. Whatever. Just one of the lesser explored mortal realms. We can stick them somewhere. The giant enclave comes together. Yes. Make it happen. Bring me back my all-giant army. That's all I'm saying.
Do you have you probably have the Marauder Giant then, right?
I do have a Marauder Giant, yeah.
Can you post a picture of them? Because I would really love to see what you did with that old.
He's not painted. I have an old one that's not painted.
Mine is unpainted.
My giant army, yeah.
Okay, we might have to challenge each other to. I mean, it's not a competition, but
I'm sure it's actually painted.
Marauder Giant.
Yeah, because I have him and then the other. Remember the old Orcs and Goblin Giant? The one that is that now is basically a little bit bigger than an ogre. He's not that big.
Less giant.
Yeah, I have him too, and I really want to do a repaint on him. I have 10 giants painted and ready to go of all sorts of different types and sizes and stuff, including the Albion giants, the little the skinny arm dudes. Yeah, these guys, little skinny arm dudes. But I would love to do more of. I'd love to get a couple more in there, because why not? Why not keep adding to this army that's not an army? It is fun. Painting giants is just fun. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's good for that. We should also, gentlemen, talk about spells, because we talked about we were a bit remiss earlier on when we covered Blood Gullet that we didn't deep dive on the spells. But I do think their spell list. We kind of mentioned that maybe the prayers are a little underwhelming. I agree. I think their spell list is good. So I'm gonna crack out a couple here real fast. Get it cracked. Here we go. Rib Cracker. Casting value of 7. Successfully cast. Pick one enemy unit within 18 inches of the cast that's visible to them. Subtract 1 from save rolls for attacks that target that unit until the start of your next hero phase. Fantastic. If Rib Cracker goes off and your big pack of gluttons or blah, 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 or insert ogre unit attacks here, oh boy, is that going to be good.
Yep.
I think Haywo Twitch has mentioned that one of the things that you can do with this army is you're just kind of pulling the slot machine. You're like, what did I get out of the cauldron? Is it good? Let me try again. Is it good? Try to cast a spell. Did it work? Try to cast a spell. Did it work? You just want as many shots on goal as you can get.
Yeah.
And
if you're going to roll a good dice roll once or twice, and that's all it takes.
And that's all it takes. Because, if a couple of these buffs land, I think Doom mentioned this too in his review. Which again, you should go absolutely watch. He dove deep on this. But yeah, Rib Cracker's great. And then obviously Blood Feast, casting value of 7. Pick one friendly ogre unit. That is not a monster. Okay, fine. And wholly within 18 inches of the caster and visible to them. Add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's melee weapons until the start of your next hero phase. Seems good to me.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Well, let's get through spells, and then I want to talk about a consideration that we haven't talked about that I think is worth mentioning.
Okay, sure. Brent, have you got some there aren't ones I think in here that are super, super horrible. But what else do you like? I think there's some other fun ones in here.
I wanted to add too, Blood Feast is cool because that would give 2 attacks to the Mournfangs.
Yeah.
The Rider and the Beast would both get that. That's kind of cool.
Because they are not monsters.
Trying to think of they're not monsters. So we're trying to think of ways to get more out of Mournfangs. Okay, so I have to talk about the funny spell. Since Tom sold you on scrap launchers, Blubber Grub Stench is pretty funny to me because then it makes the trampling charges of all the Rhinoxes count as monsters. I told you I already like that rule. This spell's cheap too. It's only on a 5. I know, if you're only getting to pick one spell on a Butcher or a Slaughtermaster, you're probably not going to pick this one. But if I was doing Blood Gullet and you get to pick
2 spells and you've got multiple Butchers and Slaughtermasters, sure, maybe that one gets its way in the list. Yeah.
I want to point out there is a trait that gives all spells to a Butcher.
Oh.
There is, yes.
Right. Well, I'm going to say that one's cool just because also it's very unique. And I do like having, the basic utility spells. When I first looked at this, I was wondering, is there going to be a -1 to hit spell? Oh, there it is. Like the stuff that
Sure.
people rely on. But then I also like seeing, here's a spell that buffs Rhinoxes, and it's like, all right, I'll take some of these oddball spells because like I don't think it's bad. I think it's a good spell. It's just not. It's not going to take priority over the ones you expect, the basic ones.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Molten Entrails, as we've kind of talked about, like that +1 damage. Like that's really big. And in the midst of all of the rest of the moving parts, I think it like if you have a big stompy, it's worth the addition.
Mhm.
Got it. I want to talk about my favorite second spell selection in here for if you're in Blood Gullet, because we haven't touched on it yet.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
Flesh Crave Curse. Okay.
It's a cool spell.
Now I'm gonna read this out, and then we're gonna need to really understand this. Here we go. Flesh Crave Curse has a casting value of 6. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of the caster that is visible to them. That unit suffers D6 mortal wounds. Hello. All right. I'm interested. In addition, add 1 to the attacks characteristic of that unit's melee weapons until the start of your next hero phase. I love this spell. Okay? And let me tell you why. Because I love that second bit of text exists. And here's why. Because that second bit of text is what is obviously you're buffing the enemy unit. But I don't care.
Yes.
Mhm.
I don't care. Because it's what
Yeah.
pushed a D6 mortal wound spell, right?
Into the
on a
consideration.
casting value of 6 into
Yeah.
existing, right? You don't get D6
balance
mortal
is
wound spells at a casting value of 6.
Yeah.
Without that. And guess what? I will blood boil the heck. It's what it is. It's just blood boil. I love blood boil. I was gonna call it blood boil in a minute,
Yeah.
but it's blood boil. Blood boil kills things, okay? And I will blood boil the heck out of some stupid 5-wound hero. Do you think I care if a Hag Queen gets an extra attack? Spoiler,
Or a wizard,
I
yeah.
don't. Okay? Or a Hollow Heart Wizard gets an extra attack. Knock yourself out, man. 4-wound, dumb goblin hero hiding back there casting. You can get flesh craved and have an extra attack with your boppy stick. There are so many units I would use this on that literally that extra attack means less than nothing. Okay.
Give the Battlesmith an extra attack.
Yeah.
But also kill him.
Right. And yeah, and against these like 5-wound heroes, oftentimes they're just dead. Like you have if they're at max and have no mortal wound protection and this spell fires off on them, 33% chance they're just dead. They don't get that +1 attack at all, even if they could have made hay out of it. If you're talking about dumb grot wizards, flip a coin, they're dead. Okay.
So the other thing I would say is there's actually some utility here that you're not talking about.
I'm in. Let's make this even better. I love this spell. I think it's super good.
So let's say that you're running those Mournfang screens.
Okay. Oh man.
And they're lining up on skeletons.
Sure. Give them extra attacks. That way you not only mortal wound them down, but then they have to kill themselves harder.
Right.
They were already overkilling the unit. Right?
Right.
Those 2 Mournfang with the
Right.
Iron Fists.
You just want them to throw more dice at you.
Right. More dice. Yeah. Plague Monks, you already killed me 50 attacks ago. Why not make another 40 attacks? That way we can just deal another 10 mortal wounds to you or whatever. Yeah, sounds great.
Right.
Yeah. That's very funny.
Yeah, like the most egregious is obviously like multi-profile things like plague bugs. Because they're gaining 2 attacks per model.
Yeah. They will really murder themselves on your Iron Fists. Yes. Wow.
Yep.
Oh, wow. I like it. It's good. Yeah, no, I agree. That's super great. This is a Johnny tech piece, right? Like, it's very Johnny, and I dig it. Their spell list is just good all the way down, because Greasy Deluge is the one we didn't mention. Hilarious spell name. And obviously also good. Just a good old-fashioned neg 1 to hit is never bad. So, like, this spell list is so solid. It's the other half of the thing that makes Blood Gullet so fun and interesting and powerful.
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
like, yeah, you can get a bunch of spellcasters, and oh, by the way, they all have fun things to pick and cast. You don't need to rely on like, I hope you're using realm spells or something, right?
No,
they've
like
got
they all
stuff.
have good tools.
Yeah.
And they're all like double casting. And which leads me to my next point.
I'm in.
You know, something that like it took me a minute to get here, but this is really good. Like really good.
Mm-hmm.
To throw a Balewind into this list.
Okay. Just for the
Because-
range on these buffs and these kind of things. Like you can do this that you can do that curse at 18 inches in and stuff.
Yeah, like the curse. Well, that goes to 24 inches, right? 18
It's-
plus 6.
No, the curse
It's
is
plus.
the curse is 12 base. The
Oh
first
yeah,
curse is
yeah.
12
The curse. Yes. Sorry, the curse. Yes, the curse goes to 18 inches. Most of the buffs or debuffs go to 24 inches.
Yep. So suddenly
You
could
gain
be near
another
your pot.
spell, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gain another spell.
Yep.
So you could be near your pot for your +1 to cast, and you're a triple caster now.
Yep.
in
Take that,
Blood
Alorial.
And what was the other thing? Oh, and like your save goes to a 4-up. Like it's not awesome, but it's not terrible.
Sure.
Like I just like everything about that. Like everything that's going on there is what you want out of a Balewind. And then on top of that, you can model it coming out of a pot.
Sure. And by the way,
Like
no
so it's like a
coach,
blood whirlwind coming out of
Yeah,
like
totally.
a cooking pot.
I agree.
You still got to put the carrot in the vortex, though.
There's got to be a carrot spinning around there. Yeah, you got to green
Sure.
stuff the carrot.
Sure.
Yeah. And onions, a little bit of parsley maybe whipping around. So yeah,
Sure. Yep.
Just seasoning. A mushroom or two, definitely some mushrooms because they certainly ate some goblins. Mushrooms do have a free glutamate. I know that. That's why mushrooms are good as seasoning in stew because chemically they add a free glutamate that enhances the flavor of the other foods without actually even if you don't eat the mushrooms.
Yeah, and to answer it, they're low enough wounds, and they're not monsters, so they can absolutely ride the Balewind. Both the like all of it. Both the butcher and the slaughtermaster, and interestingly, that increases your base size on the butcher. Like if you're wanting to be within an objective range.
Oh sure, yeah. And by the way, AOS coach, no, I am not going to stop picking on Grot Wizards. They deserve to be picked on. So there you go. Sorry.
Get more wounds.
Mm-hmm. Get more wounds. Get tougher, you little weedy dudes. Okay. So, gentlemen, is there anything else? We've gone on about this for a while now. I think this is good. We've touched on a lot of the stuff. I hope we've given people some ideas. Is there any like final unit or anything we haven't talked about that you wanted to touch on? All in all, like I said, this has been a great chat because I've been turned around on scrap launchers. I'm excited for that now.
Now, by the way, our audience, you have something to build in that Feast of Bones box out of those two Iron Blasters that you're like, oh, what am I going to do with these? If you bought 2 Feast of Bones, that means that you have the 2 scrap launchers you need.
Bam. Good to go.
You're welcome.
But yeah, anything we didn't touch on, Brent? Anything we didn't touch on you wanted to touch on, sir?
We really talked a lot about
Fire Bellies.
Fire Bellies? I was going to say we talked a lot about lead belchers, and that was something from yesterday that I definitely strongly wanted to talk about today.
Mm-hmm.
Glad we recognize that they can sort of run this interference. I also want to include that I'm kind of trying to figure out, like, they're like, I don't know, maybe some of my favorite chaff, because it seems like they out-chaff chaff. Like if you have a unit of, I don't know, a smaller unit of something else that then has to fight 2 ogres for 80 points, seems like the 2 lead belchers are going to come out on top most of the time.
Oh,
I think
absolutely. Yes.
pretty
They're
cool.
heavy chaff that will kill most enemy weedy, 5 and 10 man chaff units. Yes, I agree with that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was stoked about them, and I also really love the Tyrant. I thought about then I want to try multiple Tyrants because like kind of at the beginning, I think we touched on what this army is good at. My impression was having lots of threats, which is nice, so that even if a big unit of 12 gluttons is threatening, you probably also don't want to get charged by a single Tyrant too. So if you got 2 of those running around, I think that could, he killed a steam tank in one turn. It's like, I think he can do some real damage. So I want to try multiple tyrants. I think that shifting, like mentally away in the narrative, I'm like, well, there can only be one tyrant, right? And it's like, okay, well, no, if I dial that back a little bit, that's a strategy I think I want to try out. I'm excited to see what I can do. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So, Tom, you want to talk about fire bellies?
Yeah, I like every single spell on their spell list
that they have.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a strong horde clear that you do have to be but you have to be very, very close for it, right? Like that's the only downside, because it's only rolling for the models within the 12 inches. But
right, and on a Balewind, that's 18. I mean, I'm gonna take one if I have ogre casters.
Sure,
I'm gonna put people on Balewinds.
Sure, but it is effectively the Gaunt Summoner spell, just at a shorter range. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they also have one that's -1 to attacks for all friendly units wholly within 12 of the caster.
Mm-hmm.
So he's it's a casting of an 8, but if he's in your backfield nuking stuff, that's not terrible, because that also means that your objective holding units are at -1 to hit, because he's going to bubble around him.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, Tongues of Flame. This is a really interesting Johnny Tech spell.
Okay.
Casting value of 6. Pick one enemy unit that has 5 or more models within 18 inches of the caster, invisible to them, until the start of your next hero phase. Each time that unit finishes any type of move.
Yeah, sure. So
D3 damage.
Yeah, exactly.
D3 mortals.
Move, charge, pile in. Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Pile in. So Slanesh.
Yeah, sure.
Your multi-pile-in units.
Sure. Anybody who can pile in multiple times suffers a lot from that, right? No doubt.
43 mortal wounds in one turn.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. It's brutal, no doubt.
Yeah. So I just it makes me looking at their spell lore makes me go, I don't know, maybe could I fit those points? Is it worth having one of these guys?
Isn't he only 120? Isn't he cheap?
Yeah, he's 120 points. Yeah, he's pretty cheap.
Sweet.
Yeah. So it's it's worth considering.
Sure. He could be an issue.
And it's funny because I see him at 120, and then I see the priests with their terrible prayers at 340, and I'm like, I could get 3 wizards,
sure,
3 fire eaters,
Would
or
you
sun
rather
eaters,
take an iron blaster?
fire bellies.
I mean, just one iron blaster? No, I'd absolutely rather have the fire belly. No doubt.
Yeah.
I would rather have a scrap launcher though. So so here's how I'd rank it right now in the 120
in the hierarchy.
It goes scrap launcher, fire belly, iron blaster. That's how I'm stacking this right now. That's how much I've come around on scrap launchers.
I mean, maybe, although that whirlwind's really good.
Sure.
I never thought I'd try that.
They're always just single casters who aren't going to bonus though.
So, okay.
I understand.
Okay.
I understand. I'm just
but
stating that you're going to be rolling hard on the die. That's what it is.
Or not, if you're Balewinding next to your pot, where you're a +1 to cast and.
Not for him.
Oh, because you're right. Because it's only butchers that get that.
Correct.
Is it? I think it's just ogre cast or ogre wizards.
Is it ogre wizards? Am I wrong?
Because I think it's
it is ogre wizards.
Oh, there
Suck
you go.
it.
So he will
it's
get
ogre wizards.
Okay.
Yeah. So +1 and 6 inches from a Balewind.
There you go.
Booyah.
Okay. All right.
He could be your fire starter for the pot.
Sure. I'm still not sure, but okay, good call. I forgot that
he's your grill master.
There it is.
What that dude is.
That's what it is. He's cooking up on the grill. I forgot, of course. Somebody's got to light the fire. He's over there on the flat top. He's working at the flat top at the Mongolian barbecue. He's over there with the knives, just chopping it up and scooting at it together. Yeah, that's what's happening there.
We were talking about ogre conversions. I've already seen some great maw pots, by the way. There's a ramen bowl one I saw on Instagram.
Nice.
Somebody put the guy that's fleeing from the giant in there.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So,
yeah.
I saw somebody turn it into a hot tub and had an orc and
an orc and an elf.
Yeah, chilling in there. Yeah.
I wanted to do a Cajun theme for mine
Sure.
So to like put like overalls, like green stuff overalls onto them, and put little grass hats on there with like the straw sticking out of their mouth, and then like they're making gumbo. I like it. It writes itself. You have like alligators instead of frost sabers.
Sure. You must talk in Louisiana Creole though. Whenever you play the army, that is the requirement.
I mean, it checks out.
Sure. I want to talk about man-eaters for a second before we go. Because, oh, you know what? Thank you, Anzo. I didn't mention this. Gosh darn it. Tom, remind me next week to mention this. This is killing me.
I refuse to let you self-market.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Anzo, for buying a ticket to the class. I'm teaching 2 classes in advance of CanCon. I'm coming down to CanCon in January. I'm very excited about it. I'm teaching 2 classes the day before. The link is down in the description. You can go there and see them and sign up. So please check that out. If you're going to be at CanCon, if you're going to be there the day early, I would love to have you. I would love to sit down with you and paint some minis. I need to remember to mention that more because we worked it all out and then I dropped it in the description and then completely forgot to talk about it because my schedule is so hectic. But at any rate, yes, thank you. And anybody else who's interested who's going to be at CanCon, please spread the word. Please share. I would love to have those classes fill up and beyond. If we get them full, we'll see what we can do for fitting more in. So please, everybody on board. It's going to be a great time. Very good. Awesome, Coach. I hope to see you there, buddy. All right, so man-eaters. Here's why I like man-eaters. They hit quite hard, even by the standards of the Ogre army. They have a decent ranged attack. Okay. And their been there, done that allows you to let them run and charge, which when combined with being hungry actually makes them quite a mobile threat in the army, which is good for the ogres on foot. Because, you can then, with your command points, set them at 14 plus a charge, right? Which I think is pretty darn decent. So I like man-eaters. I'm not sure I love man-eaters a huge amount.
At 180.
But I like man-eaters. I think they're solid. I think they're, as we mentioned earlier, I think they're super fun conversions. And I think just maybe a pack of 3 of them. Yeah, 3 of them at 180 is what they are. But I think even a 3-pack of them is interesting. That's what I'll say. Yes, you're not getting the same wound to point ratio, but higher offense, good mobility. They're an interesting option. That's what I'll say. I think I'd love them even more at 160, but I think they're worth trying as a 3-pack. That's my statement. So, there you go.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, cool. All right, gentlemen. Well, I think we've tenderized this meat. Go ahead, make your final point.
I like the book.
Yeah, sure.
I know that a lot of people have been a little bit negative about it, but I like this book. I like this book so much, I'm considering a 1,000-point army of it.
Right. This is exactly kind of, other than I mentioned, there's some things that are darn, I wish they had fixed some language here and there.
Sure.
I think we all see that. The Huskard's kind of a whiff. The Priest is kind of a whiff. They could have cleaned up the Icebrow Hunter a little more. But all in all, this is a good book with lots of interesting options and units that I want to put on the table. That's the hallmark of a good book. It's not overwritten. It's not overtly complicated. It's compelling. It's interesting. The rules are straightforward. They all make sense together. It groks. And you can see how the army would work. And by the way, we talked through 5 different builds tonight that all seem competitive-ish. That's great. Brent, summation thoughts before we call it a day? Anything else you want to say?
I think you got it all there. At least for me, why I'm really excited about this book too is, yes, it's pretty obvious that it is not overpowered, and I think
which is good.
Which is good. The best place that a book can land is that, again, back to Games Workshop wants to cater to a lot of people. Great. If you want to play more competitive, seems like we found some good options for that. But also, if you're playing more casual, then you're not going to have a bad play experience with just, the army is on the table and therefore too good. No, I think you can take this book and you can cater your play experience to whatever you and your group want to do. And that's, I think, what I'm typically looking for in a new battle tome is the ability to go both ways.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this meat is tenderized. Let's throw it on the grill, gentlemen. We're ready to go. I hope you're all hungry because I think this is a great one. I want to see more like this in the future. Everybody wish me luck. Hopefully after this weekend, I have 2,000 points of Painted Ogres ready to go. You'll see the outcome of it in 24 hours in an upcoming video. So there you go. Don't forget about the CanCon classes. Tom will again forget to remind me next week. But thank you if you watched this far into it. But as always, we very much appreciate you watching. Thank you for putting up with YouTube being a little finicky tonight and dropping the stream a few times. But as always, we appreciate it, and we'll see you next Wednesday.